Name your inner critic. Everyone has an inner critic. That voice in your head that whispers you're not good enough, that you'll fail, that everyone's watching and judging. It's subtle, relentless, and it thrives in silence. But what if you could weaken it, not by fighting it, but by calling it out? Name your inner critic. Naming your inner critic is a surprisingly transformative act. When you give it a silly or distant name like Judge Judy, Doubtzilla, or Negative Nancy, you detach it from your identity. Suddenly, those destructive thoughts aren't your voice anymore. They're just noise coming from a character you've invented. And that makes them easier to ignore, challenge, or even laugh at. Your mind becomes less of a battlefield and more of a stage where you decide who gets the mic. This simple act changes the power dynamic. Instead of being consumed by self-judgment, you start observing it from a distance. You can say, "Oh, that's just Debbie Downer again," and move on. It introduces a kind of levity into what would otherwise be emotionally paralyzing. It's like putting a leash on a wild dog. You don't eliminate it, but you control where it goes. The emotional impact is profound. You start feeling less defective and more human, less broken and more aware. And awareness breeds resilience. The critic doesn't vanish, but now it has a name, a face, and a role. It stops being a shadow you're scared of and becomes a cartoon you're tired of. You can roll your eyes instead of crumble. And that right there is the beginning of reclaiming your mind. Use the because trick. There's a strange, almost magical power hidden in the word because. Most people underestimate it, yet it can open doors, shift opinions, and get people to say yes when they otherwise wouldn't. It's not the logic behind it that matters. It's the illusion of justification. The human brain craves reasons. It doesn't even matter how good those reasons are. As long as there's a because, our minds often go on autopilot and comply. This was proven in a now famous Harvard study, where researchers asked to cut in line at a busy copy machine. When they said, "May I use the copier?" they got some compliance. But when they added, "Because I'm in a rush," compliance shot up dramatically. Here's the kicker. Even when the reason was meaningless, like, "Because I need to make copies," people still agreed. The word itself triggered cooperation, not the content that followed. Why? Because our brains are wired to respond to cause and effect patterns. Because signals purpose, and we instinctively soften our resistance toward people who seem purposeful, even if that purpose is fake. This trick isn't just for influencing others. It works on yourself, too. Try saying, "I'm going to the gym because I promised myself I would." You'll feel more motivated than just saying, "I should go." It works in emails, negotiations, apologies, arguments, and even parenting. It makes you sound reasonable. It disarms defenses. It smooths the friction of rejection, and it gently nudges people toward yes. When you start using it consciously, you'll be stunned by how easily the world starts nodding back.
Do tasks poorly on purpose. Perfection is a silent killer. It paralyzes creativity, halts momentum, and cloaks even the smallest task in fear. But there's a rebel technique that tears perfectionism to shreds. Do the task badly on purpose. Not because you're lazy, not because you don't care, but because doing it poorly breaks the chains that keep you from doing it at all. This approach flips the entire narrative inside your head. The goal is no longer do it perfectly or even do it well. It becomes just do it, but do it terribly. And somehow that ridiculous permission awakens something powerful. You open the laptop, you pick up the brush, you say the words, and just like that, the spell of inaction shatters. Suddenly, it's okay to write messy sentences, to film awkward takes, to speak with trembling words. And here's the secret you discover once you begin. What you produce when you aim for terrible is often good enough, or even better than good, because it's authentic, because it's done. And done beats perfect every single time. Doing it poorly silences the inner critic. It lets you act without judgment breathing down your neck. It rewires your brain from focusing on outcome to focusing on momentum. It brings play back into work and curiosity back into fear. Most importantly, it gets you across the threshold, from the world where nothing exists yet into the world where something exists. And that something can be fixed, improved, reshaped. But you can't fix what doesn't exist. The first step isn't doing it right. The first step is doing it at all. And sometimes that means doing it wrong on purpose. Reverse psychology on yourself. Your brain doesn't like being told what to do. It rebels, even when it's you doing the telling. That's why diets backfire, routines collapse, and every should feels like a prison. But what if you could trick your own mind into wanting what it resists? That's where reverse psychology becomes your secret weapon, not against others, but against yourself. When you say, I have to work out, your brain hears obligation and instinctively retreats. But if you say, I'm definitely not working out today, suddenly it wants to rebel against the restriction. The trick is to nudge, not command. Whisper rebellion, and your mind will sprint toward the very thing it claimed to avoid. It sounds ridiculous, but it works, because deep down you still crave autonomy. You want to choose, not be forced. So when you flip the script, when you forbid yourself from doing the thing you actually want to do, you reclaim control. You bypass resistance. You uncoil the psychological tension wrapped around the task and make space for curiosity, maybe even excitement. Try saying, nope, not cleaning today. And suddenly, the urge to tidy starts to build. Tell yourself, I don't care if I ever write that blog post. And 5 minutes later, your fingers are itching to type. It's not about lying to yourself. It's about outsmarting the part of you that thrives on opposition. This isn't childish. It's strategic. It's powerful. It turns your inner saboteur into your unwitting ally. You stop fighting yourself. You start dancing with your own defiance. And in that twist, you find unexpected freedom.
The 90-second emotion rule. Emotions can feel permanent. When anger flares or anxiety surges, it's like you're drowning in something too big to escape. But here's a truth that can change everything. Most emotions, in their raw chemical form, last only 90 seconds. That's it. 90 seconds. After that, you're not feeling the emotion anymore, you're feeding it. The 90-second rule is rooted in neuroscience. When something triggers you, your body releases a surge of hormones. Adrenaline, cortisol, norepinephrine, they flood your system, causing the flush, the pounding heartbeat, the tension in your chest. But here's the kicker. If you don't add thought to it, if you don't spiral, analyze, blame, or relive, the wave burns out in just a minute and a half. All it takes is 90 seconds of breathing, observing, letting it pass like a cloud. But most people don't do that.
They grab onto the emotion. They replay the insult, the failure, the fear. And every replay adds more fuel. It's not the emotion that lasts. It's the story you tell about it. That story becomes a loop, and that loop becomes suffering. Practicing the 90-second rule means standing in the storm without becoming it. When rage hits, don't react. When panic rises, don't obey. Just breathe, feel, watch the wave roll in, count, and then watch it leave. You become the observer, not the prisoner. You break the illusion that emotions are facts or fate. And in that brief window, that tiny pause between reaction and response, you reclaim your power. You remember that emotions are messengers, not masters. They knock, you listen, then you close the door. Change location to change thought. Your thoughts don't float in some abstract vacuum. They're deeply tied to your physical environment. Every place you occupy becomes a silent trigger, conditioning your mind to think, feel, and react in certain patterns. That's why inspiration often strikes in the shower or on a walk, yet vanishes the moment you sit back at your desk. Your surroundings become a script, and your mind plays the same role every time the curtain rises. But when you change your location, you break the loop. You give your brain a new stage, and it starts rewriting the scene. Stepping into a different room, a new cafe, or even just a different chair can spark a mental shift so sharp it feels like you've unlocked a hidden version of yourself. The stress, the fog, the creative block, they can all evaporate simply because your senses are absorbing something unfamiliar. And this isn't just poetic, it's neurological. Your brain uses environmental cues to decide how to behave. When you move into a new space, those cues vanish, and the system resets. You become more present, more curious, more open. It's like hitting refresh on your internal browser, and suddenly pages that wouldn't load before start appearing with clarity. In moments of stagnation, don't force your thoughts to change. Move your body instead. Walk outside, switch rooms, sit on the floor, stand by a window. Let gravity shift. Let the light fall differently on your face. You'll feel it, the sudden unraveling of stuckness. What seemed impossible 5 minutes ago becomes obvious. And it's all because you remembered your mind follows your body, not the other way around.
Decision fatigue fix. It's not caused by what you think. Every tiny decision you make throughout the day slowly chips away at your willpower, like a quiet, invisible erosion. What to wear, what to eat, which email to open, whether to reply now or later, each one takes a small piece of your energy. By the time the real decisions show up, the ones that truly matter, you're already drained. This is decision fatigue. It's the reason you feel exhausted even when you haven't done much. The mind has a limited reserve of decision-making power each day. It doesn't matter whether the choices are big or trivial, every single one draws from the same mental fuel tank. That's why billionaires wear the same outfit every day, why writers eat the same breakfast, why monks live by strict routines. They've hacked their energy. And you can too. The fix isn't about making fewer decisions, it's about pre-deciding. Decide your meals on Sunday. Pick your outfit the night before. Automate your bill payments. Create morning and evening routines so your brain can run them on autopilot. The more you script your low-impact choices, the more mental firepower you'll have for the moments that truly define your life. You'll notice the difference almost immediately. That fog you once blamed on laziness begins to lift. That 3 p.m. slump starts to fade. Why? Because your mind is no longer bleeding energy from 1,000 shallow cuts. You've created space. You've defended your attention like it matters, because it does. The fewer decisions you force yourself to make, the better the ones you do make will become. And suddenly, your life doesn't just feel easier, it feels clearer. Echo technique for conflict. When voices rise and tensions spike, most people react instinctively. They defend, attack, or shut down. But there's a quieter, almost invisible strategy that can defuse the heat and draw people in without them even realizing it. The echo technique. It's disarmingly simple. Just repeat the last few words the other person said, gently and with curiosity, and suddenly the entire emotional atmosphere begins to shift. In conflict, everyone wants to feel heard, truly heard, but most people don't. They feel misunderstood, dismissed, or overlooked. That's where the echo becomes powerful. When you reflect someone's exact words, like saying, "You feel like no one listens to you," it short-circuits their anger. They feel acknowledged, seen, and once they feel that, their walls begin to crumble. This isn't about manipulation or parroting. It's about mirroring the emotional heartbeat beneath their words. You're silently signaling, "I'm with you, I'm listening," and that subtle cue can transform confrontation into connection. People calm down when they no longer have to fight to be understood. Echoing gives them that relief. Even neurologically, this lands deeply. Our brains are wired to respond to familiarity. Hearing their own words reflected back soothes the amygdala, lowers adrenaline, and opens the door to vulnerability. It's like emotional judo, using the other person's energy to gently redirect the force. The most profound part? You don't need solutions, counterpoints, or perfect arguments. All you need is attention, presence, and a small, intentional echo. With that, you melt resistance, build rapport, and create space for truth to emerge. Because in the heart of conflict, it's not volume that wins, it's resonance.
Visualize the worst, then solve it. Fear has a way of growing in the dark. It whispers vague, shapeless threats. What if I fail? What if it all falls apart? What if everyone sees? And because you never look it straight in the eye, it becomes a monster, amorphous, towering, unstoppable. But here's the secret. The moment you drag fear into the light and give it shape, it shrinks. That's where this mental hack begins, by visualizing the absolute worst that could happen. This isn't about doom-scrolling your future. It's about deliberately and clearly imagining your biggest fear coming true. The project fails, you get fired, the relationship ends, you freeze on stage. Picture it vividly, in full detail, and stay there for a moment. Let your nervous system feel the discomfort. Then slowly, calmly, ask yourself, and then what? What would you do? Who would you call? Where would you live? How would you recover? What would life look like a week after, a month after, a year after? As you walk through that mental wreckage, something strange happens. You realize you wouldn't die. You'd adapt. You'd find a way through it. And with that realization, fear starts to lose its grip. Most people never do this. They run from what scares them. But courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the clarity that you can survive it. Once you truly know that, you're free. Free to act, free to risk, free to try. Because you've already rehearsed the worst and written your own comeback story. Fear can't paralyze you anymore if you've already made peace with the fall. Say, "I'm excited," instead of "I'm nervous." Your heart is pounding, your stomach flips, your breath shortens. You're about to speak, perform, show up, and fear sinks its claws in. You tell yourself, "I'm nervous." You brace, you shrink. But what if that fear is just a story your brain keeps repeating, and you can flip it with 3 simple words? "I'm excited." That's it. Say it out loud. Whisper it if you need to. Because your body doesn't actually know the difference between anxiety and excitement. The symptoms are almost identical. The only difference is the meaning you attach to them. Anxiety says danger. Excitement says opportunity. Same heartbeat, different destiny. This isn't some empty pep talk. It's grounded in psychology.
Reframing anxiety as excitement literally reprograms your brain in real time. It shifts you from avoidance to engagement, from paralysis to power. When you say, "I'm excited," you're not denying the nerves, you're steering them. You're declaring, "This isn't fear, it's fuel." Public speakers use this. Athletes whisper it at the starting line. Surgeons, performers, CEOs, they all know this mental trick. Because nerves aren't the enemy, resistance is. When you label your state as excitement, your brain stops trying to escape and starts preparing to perform. So next time your chest tightens before a big moment, don't tell yourself to calm down. Don't chase silence. Just say it. "I'm excited." Watch the shift. Feel the spark. What once felt like panic now feels like power. And that power was always yours to claim.
Rubber duck debugging for clarity. There's something strangely powerful about speaking your chaos out loud, to a friend, to a journal, or even to a plastic duck. In software engineering, there's a quirky method called rubber duck debugging, where developers explain their buggy code line by line to a small rubber duck sitting on their desk. No advice, no feedback, just a one-sided explanation. And 9 times out of 10, they find the problem themselves mid-sentence, because the act of explaining unlocks something raw and brilliant: clarity. When your mind is tangled in loops of stress, confusion, or indecision, it often spins too fast to untangle itself. Thoughts crash into one another like traffic with no lanes. But when you explain your problem out loud, as if you're teaching it to someone who knows absolutely nothing, you're forced to slow down, structure your chaos, and organize what once felt impossible. It doesn't matter who or what you talk to. It could be a voice note, a mirror, your steering wheel, or yes, a little rubber duck. The magic isn't in the listener. It's in the articulation. When you speak your mind out loud, you shift from emotion to logic. You start catching contradictions, you see patterns, and often you uncover the answer that was buried beneath all that emotional noise. This isn't just a trick, it's a lifeline. When you're lost, explain why. When you're stuck, talk through what's holding you. When you can't make a choice, describe both sides out loud as if you're presenting to a stranger. You'll be stunned at how quickly clarity arrives when you stop trying to think your way through and start speaking your way through. The words untangle the knots. The chaos loosens its grip, and the duck, it just listens. Ask, what would this look like if it were easy? We complicate everything. We turn simple tasks into labyrinths. We wrap progress in layers of doubt and wear struggle like a badge of honor. Somewhere along the way, we learned that if something doesn't feel hard, it must not be worth it. But buried beneath that belief lies a life-changing question, one that cuts through the noise like lightning. What would this look like if it were easy? It's a question that disarms the ego. It pulls you out of the fog of overthinking and into the clarity of simplicity. It whispers, there's another way, quieter, cleaner, faster. Suddenly, the impossible project becomes a single step. The daunting email becomes a 2-line message. The emotional conversation becomes a moment of truth without the drama. When you ask this question, you bypass the part of yourself that's addicted to struggle. You stop glorifying exhaustion as proof of value. You stop performing pain to prove your worth. Instead, you begin to seek flow, efficiency, and ease. And ease doesn't mean lazy, it means aligned. It means finding the version of the path where your energy isn't leaking through fear, control, or perfectionism. This question shakes something loose. It invites creativity, innovation, and honesty. It reveals where you're carrying weight that doesn't belong to you. It helps you pivot, delegate, or delete. It brings joy back into your work and lightness back into your chest. The power is in its timing. Ask it when you're overwhelmed. Ask it when you're stuck. Ask it before you even begin. The moment the words leave your lips, something shifts. Complexity unravels, simplicity takes its place, and what once felt impossible suddenly feels easy.
Zeigarnik Effekt.
There's a silent weight you carry, and you feel it even when you're trying to relax, especially when you're trying to relax. It's that nagging tension in your chest, that restless tug at the edge of your focus. You tell yourself you're fine, but your mind keeps drifting back to that one thing you didn't finish, that email draft, that unsent text, that half-written idea. You might think you've forgotten it, but your brain hasn't. It's still spinning quietly in the background, draining your energy without you even realizing it. This is the Zeigarnik effect, a psychological phenomenon where your mind clings to incomplete tasks and refuses to let go. Finished things fade, but unfinished ones linger. They haunt your subconscious, resurfacing late at night, whispering during quiet moments. It's your brain's way of keeping tabs on open loops. It doesn't care that you're tired. It doesn't care that you're done for the day. It only cares that the task isn't. But here's the twist. Your mind doesn't actually need completion. It needs closure. And that means you can trick it. Write the task down, break it into steps, schedule it, acknowledge it. The moment you put it into a plan, your brain exhales. It relaxes because it knows the task hasn't been forgotten. You'll feel the difference almost instantly. The tension lightens, the mental fog clears, the noise fades. And it's not because you've finished the task, it's because your brain believes you will. You've given it a thread to hold on to, and in return, it gives you back your peace. Switch fonts to improve study focus. When you're studying, your brain behaves like a pattern-seeking machine. It loves familiarity, routines, and shortcuts, especially when it's learning. But that's also the trap. When you use the same font, the same layout, and the same materials every time, your mind stops processing the content. It starts skimming. It stops reading and starts just recognizing shapes. And that's when real learning dies. But there's a strange and surprisingly powerful fix. Change the font. Switch from Times New Roman to Courier, from Arial to Comic Sans, from neat to messy, from smooth to jagged. Make it look unfamiliar, and suddenly your brain can't coast anymore. It leans in. It starts working harder to decode the information. That extra effort is exactly what makes the material stick. It's called desirable difficulty. You're tricking your brain into paying attention by making the task just a little harder. It might feel weird or even annoying at first, but that's the point. That tiny struggle means you're actually engaging. You're no longer glossing over facts, you're chewing on them. You're creating friction, and friction is what burns learning into memory. And this isn't just theory. Studies show that when text is harder to read, recall improves. Not because you've suddenly become smarter, but because you're slowing down, focusing, and actually processing. You stop being a passive reader and become an active one. So the next time your study session starts to feel like a blur of pages and boredom, don't start over. Switch the font. Break the pattern. Jolt your brain out of comfort and into true learning.
The triple yes technique in negotiation. Negotiation doesn't begin with numbers or demands. It begins with rhythm. And nothing builds rhythm faster than agreement. The triple yes technique taps into one of the most primal patterns in human communication: momentum through affirmation. Get someone to say yes 3 times. 3 small, safe, reflexive yeses, and you create an emotional runway for the big yes that actually matters. This isn't manipulation. It's emotional architecture. When you start a conversation with undeniable truths, simple statements the other person already agrees with, you're building trust and lowering defenses. Statements like, "We both want this to work." "You're looking for the best outcome, right?" "Today's been a long day." These aren't really questions, they're invitations. Each yes is a nod, a psychological handshake, a tiny moment of alignment. And what happens next is powerful.
Each yes activates a deep sense of consistency. Once the human brain commits to a direction, it resists reversing course. So when the final ask comes, the proposal, the request, the price, the person is far more likely to lean forward than pull back. It's not hypnosis, it's momentum. Even in conflict, this works. You might say, "You're frustrated." Yes. You want to be heard. Yes. You want a real solution. Yes. And now they're listening, not resisting, because they feel seen. And once someone feels seen, they don't want to fight, they want to collaborate. The beauty of the triple yes lies in its simplicity. It feels casual, natural, even invisible. But beneath the surface, it's laying tracks straight into trust. And trust is where negotiations are truly won long before the deal ever hits the table. Name the emotion to tame it. Emotions come fast and loud. They flood your body, hijack your thoughts, tighten your chest. Anger, fear, shame, sadness. They don't knock, they barge in. And before you even realize it, you're saying things you regret, shutting down or spiraling out of control. But there's a deceptively simple way to interrupt that emotional hijack. Name it. Don't analyze it. Don't justify it. Just name it. This isn't more than self-awareness. It's biological. When you label an emotion, "I'm feeling shame," that's anxiety. This is grief. You literally shift brain activity. The emotional storm that once lived in the limbic system moves into the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain where logic and regulation live. And when that happens, the chaos starts to lose its grip. Naming the emotion creates distance. Suddenly, it's not you anymore, it's something you're experiencing. It's like turning on a light in a dark room. The monster under the bed is still there, but now you can see its shape. Once you can see it, it becomes less powerful. It's no longer some invisible, unbearable force. It's anger. It's fear. It has a name. And things with names can be understood, managed, and survived. Try whispering it out loud next time the surge hits. Say it to your reflection. Write it down. This is embarrassment. This is envy. You'll feel your breath slow, your pulse shift, because the moment you identify the feeling, you stop drowning in it. You're watching it float by. This isn't avoidance, it's ownership. The quiet, steady reclaiming of your emotional life. You feel the storm, you call it by name, and it passes through without tearing you apart.
Say, "You're right," instead of "I agree." There's a subtle shift that happens when you say, "You're right," instead of "I agree." And that shift is seismic. One phrase affirms your alignment. The other affirms their identity. When you say, "I agree," the power stays with you. It's about your judgment, your stance, your lens on the situation. But when you say, "You're right," you hand that power over. You validate the other person. And that validation hits deep, deeper than logic, deeper than reason. It goes straight to the heart of ego. Because deep down, everyone wants not just to be heard or understood, but to be right. It's not enough to be seen as valid. We crave being seen as correct. When you give someone that recognition, their defenses soften. Their need to fight begins to fade. You've given them the win before the argument even begins. This small phrase works everywhere. In marriages, in sales, in conflicts, in boardrooms, in parenting. Say, "You're right," and watch how the energy changes. The room calms, the conversation flows. Even if you don't fully agree, find the part that's true and highlight it.
Say, "You're right about how that came across." Or, "You're right, we could have handled that better." You don't lose ground when you say it, you gain trust. And if you're the one who's ever longed to hear those words, notice how powerful that hunger feels. That's the impact of being told you're right. It sticks, it heals, it bridges distance. So use it, but mean it. Because when spoken authentically, "you're right" isn't just agreement. It's affirmation. It's connection. It's emotional disarmament in 3 words. Negative visualization for gratitude. Imagine losing everything you love. The people closest to you, the roof over your head, your health, your freedom. Picture it, not in theory, but in painful detail. The silence of absence, the stillness of loss, the tiny things you overlook every single day, the warmth of your morning coffee, the strength of your working legs, the miracle of breathing without pain. Gone. Sit with that image. Let it ache. Let it scare you. Let it break you just a little. This is negative visualization, one of the oldest and most hauntingly beautiful mental exercises we have. The Stoics used it, not to be morbid, but to wake themselves up, because nothing sharpens the mind faster than facing the possibility that everything you take for granted could disappear, and that one day it will. We live in a culture obsessed with reaching, more, better, next. But when you stop for a moment and visualize the absence of what you already have, something miraculous happens. Gratitude surges, not because you've gained anything new, but because you've remembered what's been there all along. The warmth of your bed, the sound of laughter, the voice of someone you love, the ordinary day that would shatter your heart if it were suddenly taken away from you. When you return from that imagined loss, life feels sharper, sweeter, more sacred. The mundane becomes gold, the annoying becomes precious, and for a brief, fleeting moment, you are completely, painfully, beautifully alive. Negative visualization isn't about fear. It's about reverence. It's not about suffering. It's about remembering how much you already have and how little time you truly get to hold it.
Clench your left fist to reduce anxiety. It crashes in. Your heart races. Your thoughts start to spiral. Your body stiffens. And suddenly, you're no longer here. You're trapped in survival mode. But hidden inside your body is a strange, almost counterintuitive escape hatch. Your left fist. Not a meditation, not a mantra, a fist. And not just any fist, your left one. This isn't some mystical trick. It's neuroscience. The left hand is controlled by the right hemisphere of your brain, the side responsible for emotion, intuition, and spatial awareness. When anxiety hijacks you, it's often the left brain, analytical, verbal, overthinking, spinning stories that tighten the grip of panic. But when you clench your left hand tightly, you activate the emotional, calming right hemisphere. It draws energy and blood flow away from the storm and grounds you through your own nervous system. The movement itself is small, invisible to anyone watching, but the shift inside is massive. It interrupts the runaway train of anxiety. It creates a physical anchor. It brings you back into your body where breath and presence still live. You start to feel sensation again instead of being consumed by fear. You regain choice, the choice to pause, to speak, to stay. In high-stress moments, a speech, a confrontation, a test, you don't need to calm down, you need to reclaim control. And that starts with one tight, intentional squeeze. Your body is not your enemy, it's your ally. Sometimes it just needs a signal. And sometimes that signal is a clenched left fist in the silence of chaos. Microscripts for social anxiety. There's a voice that roars when you enter a room, meet a stranger, or stand in front of a crowd. It whispers that you'll say the wrong thing, look awkward, or expose yourself. It tells you that everyone's watching, judging. And under that invisible weight, your throat tightens, your thoughts race, and your words disappear. This is social anxiety, and it can turn the simplest human interaction into a battleground. But there's a subtle, life-saving tool: microscripts. Microscripts are short, pre-rehearsed phrases you keep in your back pocket like armor. Simple lines you can say when your brain locks up, when silence gets too loud, when panic floods your chest. Hi, I don't think we've met. That's interesting. Tell me more. What brings you here? They're not magic. They're anchors. When everything inside you is screaming to flee or freeze, they give you something solid to stand on. You don't need to be charming. You don't need to be smooth. You just need one line to open the door. Microscripts are the keys. They override the mental static, bypass the pressure to improvise, and let you breathe again. Just knowing you have them reduces fear because you've rehearsed survival. It's not about sounding perfect. It's about building a bridge between isolation and connection. And once that bridge is crossed, once that first line is spoken, everything softens. The storm quiets. You remember that people aren't waiting to judge you. They're waiting to connect. And with one simple line, you've just given them permission to meet you there. One line. That's all it takes to reclaim your voice. Touch something cold to reground. Your breathing shortens. Your hands start to tremble. Your thoughts race like a runaway train with no brakes. Logic disappears. You feel like you're drowning, even when nothing around you seems visibly wrong. In those moments, what you need isn't another thought. It's sensation. Something real. Something physical. Something cold. Touching something cold is one of the fastest, most primal ways to interrupt that mental spiral. A cold glass, a frozen spoon, the metal of a doorknob, even running water. When your skin connects with that icy surface, your nervous system is shocked into presence. It says, "We're here now." Cold doesn't care about your racing thoughts or your internal storm. It demands attention. And in doing so, it gives you relief. This isn't random. It's biology. Cold stimulates the vagus nerve, the circuit that tells your body it's safe to calm down. It snaps your mind out of overthinking and brings it back to sensation. You can feel it, name it, breathe through it. It becomes an anchor when the waves try to pull you under. In moments of dissociation, anxiety, or emotional overload, don't search for the perfect words. Find something cold. Grip it. Focus on it. Let it remind you that you are not your panic. You are not your thoughts. You are the body that holds them. And that body knows how to come home. Sometimes clarity begins with a chill in your palm, and that chill alone can be enough to bring you back to yourself. Delay reactions by 6 seconds. In the heat of the moment, your emotions can surge like wildfire. A sharp comment, a disappointing message, a sudden shock, and before you even realize it, your mouth opens, you snap, you defend, you say the thing you'll regret. Maybe for minutes, maybe for years. But what if 6 seconds could change everything? Just 6 quiet, burning seconds between impulse and action. The science behind it is simple but powerful. When your brain perceives a threat, whether emotional or physical, your amygdala flares up. It floods your system with cortisol and adrenaline. You stop reasoning, you start reacting. But that surge only lasts a few seconds. If you can sit still, breathe, and wait it out, it passes. And when it passes, you return to the version of yourself that's wiser, calmer, more aligned with who you actually want to be. These 6 seconds are not passive. They're heroic. They're the space where you choose not to escalate, not to destroy, not to burn bridges you'll later need to cross. In those moments, you don't need to say anything. You don't need to fix anything. You only need to pause. Breathe in, hold it, and let the emotion pass like a wave. You can still speak your truth. You can still act. But now you'll do it with presence, not poison. With clarity, not chaos. Those 6 seconds become a shield not to suppress your feelings, but to protect your future. Because in that tiny slice of silence, you become stronger than your reaction. You become the kind of person you won't have to apologize for later.
Ask, what would a role model do? When you're stuck in fear, indecision, or emotional chaos, your mind turns into a maze of doubt. You question everything, your choices, your worth, your future. Clarity feels miles away. But there's a simple mental switch that can slice through that noise like a blade. Step out of yourself. Imagine your highest role model, someone you deeply admire, facing your exact situation. Then ask, what would they do? This isn't just a mental game, it's a neurological shortcut. When you step into someone else's frame, someone who embodies courage, wisdom, or strength, you override panic and activate a different part of your brain. You shift from survival mode to strategy, from reaction to vision. The emotional fog starts to lift because now the decision isn't about you. It's about channeling the clarity of someone you already believe in. It doesn't matter who it is, your future self, a mentor, a character, a historical figure. When you picture them handling your dilemma, something inside you clicks. They wouldn't spiral. They wouldn't shrink. They'd move. They'd decide. They'd speak. And suddenly, so can you. The beauty of this mental hack is that it gives you permission to be someone else, just long enough to remember who you really are. Because the truth is, that role model you're picturing, they're already inside you. You're not asking what they would do. You're asking what you would do if you remembered your power. And when you ask that question with full presence, the answer doesn't come from fear. It comes from the version of you that never flinched. Use third-person self-talk. When your mind starts to spiral, when fear, shame, or doubt sink their claws into your thoughts, it can feel like you're trapped inside a storm with no way out. Everything becomes personal, overwhelming, and urgent. You tell yourself, I can't handle this, and it feels like the truth. But there's a strange, almost childlike technique that cuts through the chaos. Talk to yourself in the third person. Instead of saying, I'm scared, say, Cohen is scared. Instead of, I don't know what to do, say, Cohen is figuring this out. It sounds silly, like something a cartoon character might do, but what it actually does is profound. It creates psychological distance between you and your emotions. You step out of the fire and become the observer. Neuroscience backs it up. Third-person self-talk activates areas of the brain tied to empathy and self-control. You stop seeing yourself as the problem and start seeing yourself as a person dealing with the problem. That shift gives you space to breathe, to reflect, to be kinder. You start speaking to yourself like you would to a friend, with guidance, with care, with perspective. It feels less like drowning in your own panic and more like watching someone you care about trying to swim. And that alone changes how you respond. It softens your inner dialogue. It strengthens your resilience. It lets logic slip back in. You're still in the storm, but now you're holding the umbrella. You become the calm voice inside your own chaos, and that voice saves you every single time.
Plan deliberate bad days. There's a brutal kind of exhaustion that doesn't come from overwork. It comes from over-expectation. The pressure to be productive, positive, and perfect every single day is a quiet poison. It builds like steam behind your eyes, convincing you that rest equals failure and slowness equals weakness. But what if you gave yourself permission not to rise above it, but to lean into it? What if instead of fearing bad days, you chose them? Deliberate bad days are a rebellion against burnout. You don't wait until you're broken, you plan your collapse. You pick the day. You cancel the striving, and you tell the world and yourself, today I'm off duty. You wear the soft clothes. You don't clean. You don't perform. You eat what you want. You say no without guilt, and you let the to-do list rot. Not as a breakdown, but as an act of control. And that's the twist. These days don't weaken you. They restore you. Because when you allow yourself to fall apart on purpose, you stop fearing the fall. You realize you can unravel without disappearing, that nothing collapses when you stop holding it all together for 24 hours. In fact, something beautiful happens. You soften. You feel. You hear the parts of yourself that usually get drowned out by shoulds. The next day, you're lighter, clearer, fiercer. Not because you pushed through, but because you let go. Not every day has to be conquered. Some days are meant to be surrendered. And sometimes, surrender is the most powerful thing you'll ever choose.
Label thoughts as just thoughts. Some thoughts arrive like whispers. Others slam into your mind like a scream. I'm not good enough. They hate me. This will never work. And before you know it, they're not just thoughts, they're reality. You don't question them. You obey them. You let them decide who you are, what you're worth, and what you're allowed to do. But there's a way to disarm them. A quiet, powerful move that loosens their grip. Label them as thoughts. Instead of saying, I'm a failure, say, I'm having the thought that I'm a failure. Say it slowly. Let the words land. Because what you're doing is not denial, it's distinction. You're separating your identity from the storm in your mind. The thought is no longer you. It's a visitor. And visitors don't get to redecorate the house. This technique isn't intellectual. It's visceral. The moment you label a thought, you step into awareness. You become the observer, not the victim. The thought loses its authority. It becomes something you're noticing, not something you're absorbing. And that difference is everything. You can walk through an entire day thinking, I can't do this. Or you can say, I'm noticing the thought that I can't do this. One buries you, the other sets you free. The thought might still be there, but you're no longer inside it. You're watching it float past like a cloud. You feel the space return. You feel your power return. Because you are not your thoughts. You are the one who sees them, names them, and lets them go.
Mental rehearsal before bed. There's a sacred space between wakefulness and sleep, a space where your brain becomes more suggestible, more malleable, more open to the stories you feed it. Most people spend those final minutes scrolling, worrying, or replaying regrets. But if you use that space intentionally, you can plant something deeper. You can rehearse the life you want to live. Mental rehearsal before bed isn't daydreaming, it's strategic visualization. You close your eyes and play the next day like a movie. You walk through that hard conversation. You see yourself entering the gym. You imagine speaking clearly, showing up confidently, getting the win. And your brain doesn't know it's not real. To your nervous system, it is experience. It lays down neural tracks. It prepares your body to follow the path you've already walked in your mind. This isn't new age fluff. Athletes do it, CEOs do it, Navy SEALs do it because it works. It lowers stress, boosts performance, and primes your subconscious for action. You're not just hoping things go well, you're training for it. And the emotional shift is massive. Instead of falling asleep in dread, you fall asleep in preparation. Instead of chaos, you feel clarity. You wake up not just rested, but ready, because you've already been there. You've seen the day unfold, and now your body moves through it like a script it already knows. While the world sleeps in worry, you're rehearsing greatness. Quietly, softly, powerfully. And in the dark, your future begins to take form.
List 3 wins every night. The day ends, and your mind starts its ritual, scanning everything you didn't do, the calls you missed, the mistakes you made, the goals you didn't hit. And before you fall asleep, you're carrying the weight of 1,000 tiny failures. Quiet ones, invisible ones, but heavy all the same. This is how burnout begins. Not with exhaustion, but with absence. The absence of acknowledgement, of progress, of self-recognition. That's why this practice matters. List 3 wins every night. They don't have to be monumental. They just have to be real. I sent that message I was avoiding. I drank more water today. I got out of bed even though I didn't want to. These are not small. They're evidence. Evidence that you're showing up, that you're trying, that you're moving forward, even when the world doesn't clap for it. When you do this night after night, something shifts. The mind that once hunted for failure starts scanning for success. You begin living differently because you know you'll be asked, at the end of the day, what did you win today? And so you look for wins. You create them. Your brain rewires itself to see progress instead of absence. This isn't about toxic positivity. It's about balance. It's about refusing to let the darkness get the final word. You end your day by honoring the fights you brought to it. You sleep lighter, you wake stronger, and you remember, you're not just surviving, you're winning.
Eye contact triangle for influence. There's a kind of silence that happens in conversation. Not awkward, not tense, but electric. It's the moment when someone holds your gaze just long enough to make you feel seen, but not long enough to make you flinch. It's the kind of eye contact that builds trust, chemistry, and authority. And it doesn't happen by accident. It's crafted. One of the simplest but most powerful tools to master this is the eye contact triangle. This technique is deceptively simple. You don't just stare at one point on someone's face. You rotate your gaze slowly and naturally between their left eye, right eye, and mouth, forming a subtle, fluid triangle. It's not robotic. It's not forced. It's rhythmic. This quiet motion gives your gaze a shape, a flow, a warmth. You appear deeply focused, alive in the moment, not creepy, not stiff, just present. People feel it. They might not know why, but they register it. A triangle gaze says, I'm here with you. I'm listening. It breaks the flatness of staring and the skittishness of looking away. It creates safety, intimacy, even intrigue. You appear grounded, unshaken. Your words land deeper. And the magic is, it calms you, too. When you focus on the triangle, your nervous energy has somewhere to go. It steadies your mind. It slows your speech. It makes you more aware of the connection you're building in real time. Mastering this doesn't require charisma, just
awareness. You don't need better words. You need better presence. And presence is built in the quiet rhythm of your gaze. Triangle by triangle, moment by moment, you begin to own the room without ever saying a word.
Reframe have to into get to. Most of your day is filled with silent contracts. I have to wake up early. I have to go to work. I have to answer that email. I have to clean up, show up, follow up. And slowly, without noticing, your life starts to feel like a list of obligations. Even the beautiful things, the kids, the job you once wanted, the body you get to move, begin to feel like burdens. But everything shifts with one simple reframe. Replace have to with get to. I get to wake up early. It means you're alive. You have another day. I get to go to work. It means you're trusted, needed, part of something. I get to take care of my family. It means they're here. You're not grieving them. You're still holding them. These aren't mental gymnastics. They're perspective CPR. They bring the soul back into routines that once felt hollow. This shift doesn't erase hardship. It reminds you why it's worth it. It's a flash of gratitude inside the grind, a quiet reminder that the things you complain about today may one day be the things you'd give anything to return to. Every time you say get to, you reclaim agency. You turn duty into privilege. You step out of survival mode and into a life that's chosen. Even when it's hard, even when it hurts, you remember, this isn't something you're forced to do, it's something you're still here to do. And that's everything. Use power poses before speaking. A power pose is bold, expansive, and unapologetic. Arms out, shoulders back, chest open, feet planted. It's the opposite of shrinking, the opposite of curling in. And when you hold one for even just 2 minutes, something primal happens. Your cortisol, the hormone of stress, drops. Your testosterone, the fuel of confidence, rises. You don't just look more powerful, you feel it. Chemical, physical, real. This isn't just about standing like Wonder Woman in the mirror. It's about reclaiming space in a world that teaches you to take up less. It's about entering your body like you belong there. It's about sending your nervous system a new story, one where you are not prey, not an imposter, not invisible, but present, solid, and in control. And it changes everything. The way you speak, the way you negotiate, the way you breathe. People respond to the energy you exude before they ever hear your words. So give them something undeniable, not because you're faking it, but because you're waking it up. The power was always there. You just had to stand like it.
Talk slower for authority. You rush through sentences like they're burning in your mouth. Fast, nervous, eager to be done. You don't want silence to creep in. You don't want to sound unsure. You don't want anyone to think you're weak. But what if the very thing you fear, slowing down, was actually the key to power? Confidence doesn't shout. It doesn't race. It pauses. It owns the moment. Talking slower isn't just a style. It's a signal. It tells the room, I'm not in a hurry. I belong here. When you slow your speech, your words land heavier. People lean in. Your thoughts feel deliberate. Your presence expands. You stop chasing approval and start commanding attention. And the world feels that shift instantly. Your brain, too,
begins to follow your voice. Slower speech soothes your nervous system. It quiets the storm of anxiety before it turns into rambling. It creates space between your thoughts where clarity and control live. When your heart is racing, your breath shallow, and your head spinning, talking slower drags you out of the spiral. It anchors you. And here's what people won't tell you. The ones who talk the fastest often feel the most afraid, like if they stop for 1 second, they'll lose the right to speak. But the ones who pause, the ones who let the silence breathe around their words, own the room. Not because they speak more, but because they believe what they're saying. So slow down. Say less. Mean more. Speak like your words matter. Because they do.
Anchor moods with music. There are songs you can't hear without feeling something. Deep, immediate, almost involuntary. A sudden ache in your chest, a fire in your gut, a memory that floods you without warning. That's not random. That's a neuro anchor. Your brain wires music to emotions so tightly that it becomes a trigger, a shortcut. And once you understand that, you can use it on purpose to control your emotional state, like flipping a switch. Music becomes a tool, not just background noise. You can build playlists not just by genre, but by mood outcome. A playlist to feel unstoppable, one to slow your heartbeat, one to mourn, one to reset. When you pair a specific song with a specific emotion enough times, your brain links them. And that link becomes fast, reliable, physical. You don't just remember the feeling, you relive it. This is how athletes prime themselves, how performers ground themselves backstage, how people claw their way out of panic, heartbreak, or numbness. They use music like a weapon, like medicine, like armor. You don't have to wait for motivation or peace to find you. You can press play and summon it. Over time, these songs become sacred emotional portals. And in the chaos of life, when your mind feels hijacked and you're slipping under, they become anchors that hold you, pull you back, remind you who you are, who you've been, and who you're trying to become. In 3 chords, your entire nervous system can change. That's not entertainment, that's alchemy.
Ask, what am I not seeing? Your mind is a master at building stories. It stitches together patterns, beliefs, and assumptions until they feel like truth. You think you see the full picture, but really you're staring through a keyhole. And what's outside that frame could change everything. That's why this question is so powerful, so humbling, so quietly explosive. What am I not seeing? It's not a plea for information. It's a challenge to your own certainty. It breaks the trance of being right. It opens a hidden door behind every frustration, every conflict, every "why does this keep happening" moment. It whispers that there's more, and that more might just change everything. Ask it when you're stuck, when a problem won't budge, when someone hurts you and you can't understand why. Ask it. When you're sure you've tried everything, when you're furious, when you're scared, when you feel like the victim or the hero or the only one who gets it, ask it. Not to doubt yourself, but to grow beyond yourself. Because the truth is, you are missing something, always. There's a blind spot, a hidden angle, a quiet truth you haven't faced yet. And when you crack the door open even an inch, you invite in clarity, compassion, solutions, relief.
This question makes you bigger than your ego. It makes you wise when others double down on their rage. It makes you dangerous to ignorance, to arrogance, to unconsciousness. And once you start asking it, really asking it, the world unfolds in ways you never imagined. Because now you're finally seeing.
Remove just and sorry from emails. There's a quiet way we shrink ourselves. One word, one apology, one tap of the backspace key at a time. It's in the way we write emails that say, "Sorry to bother you," or "just checking in." We think we're being polite, careful, considerate, but really, we're diluting our voice before it even reaches the screen. We're asking for forgiveness for taking up space. And every time we do it, we reinforce the lie that we're not allowed to be direct. Just is a softener, a way of stepping lightly where you're already welcome. It weakens statements. It turns confidence into caution. Sorry becomes a reflex, not a response. We say it before we've even caused harm, before anyone's even complained. And each time we carve ourselves smaller, less certain, less credible, less heard. But when you remove those words, something radical happens. Your message becomes clear, clean, unapologetic. You say what you mean and it lands differently. You sound like someone who knows their worth, who values time, who doesn't need permission to speak. You don't need to be aggressive. You just need to stop disappearing inside your own sentences. Replace "just wanted to ask" with "I'm reaching out to ask." Drop "sorry for the delay" if there's nothing to apologize for. Watch how differently people respond, not because you became louder, but because you stopped muting yourself. Every word you write sends a signal. Make sure yours say, "I belong here, I have something to say, and I'm not sorry for saying it."
Use repetition to persuade. The first time you say something, it drifts. The second time, it echoes. The third time, it roots. This is the silent, invisible force of repetition, the ancient language of belief. It's not flashy, it's not loud, but it's powerful. What gets repeated gets remembered, and what gets remembered begins to feel true. This is how ideas become movements, how products become cults, how lies become facts, not because they're brilliant, but because they're familiar. Your brain is wired to trust what it's heard before. It's an evolutionary shortcut. What's familiar feels safe. What's repeated feels reliable, even if it's completely unverified. Marketers know this. Politicians thrive on it. Cult leaders weaponize it. But so can you, ethically, wisely, consciously. If you want someone to understand your idea, believe in your value, or support your mission, you don't need the perfect sentence. You need the same sentence, said clearly, consistently, confidently, again and again. This isn't manipulation, it's structure. It's the rhythm that turns words into anchors. If you say, "We're building something meaningful," once, it's a hope. Say it 10 times in 10 different ways, and it becomes a belief system in others and in you. Repetition doesn't just persuade others. It persuades you. It rewires your identity. It shapes how you see yourself, your purpose, your place in the world. Repeat your vision. Repeat your worth. Repeat your truth until it's louder than your fear. And one day, without even noticing, the world starts to echo you back.
Time box negative emotions. When sadness, rage, anxiety, or shame arrive, they don't knock politely. They barge in and make themselves at home. And if you let them, they'll stay for hours, days, even years. But what if you set a timer?
What if you gave your emotions space to breathe, but not forever? That's the idea behind time boxing. Time boxing your emotions means giving them a window. Saying to yourself, I'm going to feel this fully for 10 minutes, 15 at most. During that time, you scream into a pillow, cry, journal, rage. You let the sorrow flood in without judgment. But then you end it. Not because the pain has vanished, but because you've contained it. You've built emotional walls where there was once just a flood. This isn't suppression. It's precision. It's you saying, yes, you can be here, but on my terms. It honors your feelings without letting them hijack your entire day. It's an act of emotional self-leadership, a declaration that your pain is valid, but it's not in charge. Set a timer, feel it all, then move. Walk, shower, play a song that shifts your energy. Signal to your nervous system that the storm had its moment, but now the sky belongs to you again. Emotions are weather, not identity. They pass, and they pass faster when they're seen, named, and gently closed. Time boxing reminds you that you are not your sadness. You are not your rage. You are the container that can hold them, strong enough to feel without falling apart. And that strength changes everything.
And one word can flip the entire tone of a conversation. That word is but. It sneaks in like a thief, erasing everything that came before it. I love your idea, but, or you did a great job, but, suddenly the praise disappears. The connection breaks. The listener tenses, waiting for criticism. But cancels, it negates, it divides. Over time, it builds walls where bridges should be. Now replace it with and. I love your idea, and here's another thought. You did a great job, and there's room to grow. Feel the shift? That's the magic. And holds space for both truth and tension. It doesn't pit ideas against each other, it weaves them together. It turns feedback into collaboration. It transforms conflict into conversation. This tiny switch disarms defensiveness. It allows you to disagree without attacking, to critique without shaming, to be assertive without closing hearts. People feel heard when they hear and. They stay open, they stay curious. And when people stay open, change becomes possible. Use it in arguments, in meetings, in emails, in parenting. Use it whenever you want to be understood and respectful. Firm and kind, honest and connected. Because and is generous. It's humble. It says, I see your point, and I have something to add. Not overwrite, add. It's a word so small it often goes unnoticed, but when you use it deliberately, it becomes a tool of influence, a subtle rebellion against the need to choose one side or the other. It creates space, and in that space, better conversations and better relationships begin.
Stack habits with anchor tasks. You start strong, full of intention, focus, and energy. But somewhere between intention and action, it slips. Life gets loud. Resistance kicks in, momentum fades, and suddenly, what began as a promise turns into another unfinished effort. But what if building habits didn't require more force, just better rhythm? That's where habit stacking with anchor tasks becomes a quiet revolution. An anchor task is something you already do. Brushing your teeth, making coffee, locking the door. It's familiar, automatic, non-negotiable, and that makes it the perfect foundation. Because when you attach a new habit to something solid, it borrows that solidity. You don't have to remember it. You don't have to fight for it. You simply ride the existing momentum. I meditate right after brushing my teeth. I stretch while the coffee brews. I write 3 lines of gratitude before opening my laptop. These small, quiet stacks may seem insignificant, but their impact compounds over time. The brain loves predictability. It loves triggers. When a new behavior shows up in the same place, at the same time, alongside something familiar, the neural wiring sticks faster and lasts longer. This isn't about willpower. It's about architecture. You're not pushing harder. You're designing smarter. And the best part? These stacks become rituals, anchored moments that remind you not just what to do, but who you're becoming. You start trusting yourself more, not because you're perfect, but because you keep showing up, quietly, consistently, in rhythm with your own life. Build habits like roots. Let them grow where the ground is already solid. That's how lasting change begins, not in chaos, but in the soft, steady gravity of what's already yours.
Write a fake Amazon review of your day. Your days blur together. One folds into the next like a stack of unlabeled pages tossed on a desk. You wake, you grind, you scroll, you sleep. And somewhere in the blur, you start to wonder where the time went. But what if, at the end of each day, you paused and reviewed it like a product you bought online? What if you wrote a fake Amazon review for your own day? 3.5 stars. Delivery was late, packaging was messy, but the coffee was strong and the sunset felt like redemption. Or maybe 5 stars. Came with unexpected laughter and a phone call that mattered. It sounds ridiculous, but it's not. Because when you turn your day into a review, you step back. You become the observer, not just the participant. You give shape to what felt like chaos. You start to witness your life. It makes you hunt for detail, the tiny wins, the subtle failures, the moments that annoyed you, and the ones that somehow mattered more. And as you write, even sarcastically, you start to uncover meaning. Even a 2-star day becomes a story worth telling. Even a bad day becomes a memory worth keeping. It's journaling disguised as humor, mindfulness in the form of satire. It's giving your day a headline so it doesn't vanish into the blur. 1 paragraph, 1 laugh, 1 moment of truth you wouldn't have noticed unless you were pretending to sell your day to a stranger on the internet. Your life is worth reviewing. Every messy, beautiful, fragmented piece of it. Don't let it slip away. Rate it, remember it, reclaim it.
Replace motivation with systems. It shows up when things are easy and disappears when you need it most. It's unreliable, moody, and fleeting. And if you build your life on it, you'll build a house on sand. What you need isn't more willpower. It's a system, a structure, a repeatable rhythm that doesn't care how you feel. Systems don't ask for permission. They don't check your mood. They don't need inspiration. They just run. A system is setting your clothes out the night before so you don't think. You just dress. A system is writing for 10 minutes at the same time every day, no matter if the words feel beautiful or broken. A system is automating the habits you care about, so they happen whether you're tired, anxious, or numb. The truth is, you don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. Motivation might help you start, but systems make sure you finish, because they don't rely on who you are in the moment. They rely on what you've designed ahead of the moment. And that design is what saves you when everything else falls apart. You stop needing to believe in yourself every morning. You just show up. You stop chasing bursts of energy. You trust the schedule. You stop wondering if you're strong enough. You build strong into your day. And when life gets hard, and it always does, your system becomes your lifeline. Not motivation, not magic, just consistency, built brick by brick.
Cold showers for mood reset.
Sometimes it feels like your brain is a room with no oxygen, stale, heavy, buzzing with anxiety, sadness, or sheer mental fog. You try to think your way out, breathe your way out, distract your way out, and nothing works. But then you step into a cold shower, and everything slams into place. Your breath vanishes, your mind goes still. You're no longer thinking, you're awake. Cold water doesn't ask for permission. It demands presence. It shocks your nervous system into now. In a matter of seconds, it floods your brain with adrenaline, norepinephrine, and dopamine. Those aren't just buzzwords. They're chemistry that shifts your entire mood landscape. Depression dulls. Anxiety stalls. Lethargy evaporates. What's left is raw alertness, a kind of inner fire that nothing else quite ignites. You step out shaking, maybe swearing, heart pounding, but you're back. Back in your body, back in the moment. It didn't solve everything, but it flipped the switch. It ended the loop. It gave you a full-body reset when you couldn't find one anywhere else. This isn't a self-help gimmick. It's a biological override. Ancient, primal, and yes, brutal. But that brutality carves space inside you. Space for a new breath, a new thought, a new momentum. Cold showers don't make you stronger because they're cold. They make you stronger because you chose to step into discomfort. You stood in the storm on purpose and found yourself still breathing. That moment changes you every time.
Smile with your eyes. There's a smile that moves your lips, and then there's the one that moves people. You've seen it before. In a stranger who made you feel safe, in a friend who didn't even have to speak. It's not the mouth that makes it real. It's the eyes. That flicker of warmth, that micro moment of connection that tells someone, I see you, I like you, you're safe here. This is the Duchenne smile, the real one, the one your nervous system can't fake. When you smile with just your mouth, it's social camouflage, it's habit, it's politeness. But when your eyes light up, everything changes. Your face softens, your energy shifts. You send an unspoken message that lowers defenses and builds instant trust. People don't feel watched, they feel welcomed. And the body knows the difference. It leans towards sincerity and away from performance. This kind of smile doesn't require a mood, it requires presence. You don't need to be happy, you need to be here to mean it. To let the feeling land in your chest before it travels to your face. Because the eyes don't lie. They reveal when your smile is empty, and they glow when your spirit speaks through them. In a world drowning in forced politeness and digital disconnect, a real smile, one with soul in it, is revolutionary. It's grounding, it's disarming, it's healing. People remember it long after they forget your name. So when you meet someone, look them in the eye. Smile not to impress, but to invite. And let your eyes say what words never could. You matter.
Ask, what would make this 1% better? Perfection is a liar. It tells you nothing's worth doing unless it's flawless. That if you can't overhaul your life today, you might as well stay stuck. It paralyzes progress, traps you in all-or-nothing thinking, and disguises itself as high standards. But there's a gentler, sharper question that cuts right through the noise. What would make this 1% better? Not perfect, not fixed, just 1%. A breath, a shift, a barely visible change that nudges you out of paralysis and into motion. It removes the pressure of transformation and replaces it with curiosity. What would make this room 1% cleaner? What would make this meeting 1% more human?
What would make my mood 1% lighter right now? It sounds tiny, but it changes your direction, and direction always matters more than speed. 1% is doable. It's so small your resistance can't argue with it, and that's the point. You're not demanding greatness, you're inviting movement. And once you move, momentum takes over. Small shifts compound. The day you were going to waste gets rescued. The spiral gets interrupted. The overwhelm gets diluted by one tiny act of agency. This question is disarming, humble, gentle enough to use in burnout, sharp enough to use in ambition. It doesn't ask you to fix your life. It asks you to touch it. And when you do that, day after day, you look up one morning and realize everything's changed. Not because you forced a breakthrough, but because you asked for 1% and never stopped.
Postpone temptation by 10 minutes. Temptations hit hard. You feel the pull, sharp, urgent, irresistible. Scroll the feed, open the fridge, light the cigarette. Say the thing you know you'll regret. Temptation doesn't knock politely. It crashes in like a wave, convincing you that this one choice, right now, will give you peace, relief, escape. And maybe, for a second, it does. But then comes the crash. Guilt, shame, lost time. Again, and again, and again. That's where this deceptively simple tool changes everything. Postpone it. Just 10 minutes. You don't have to fight the urge. You don't have to say no. You just say later. You set a timer. You walk. You breathe. You change rooms. And in those 10 minutes, something powerful happens. The emotional spike fades. The craving softens. The part of your brain screaming for dopamine quiets just enough for logic to whisper. This isn't about self-denial. It's about reclaiming space. The space between urge and action. The space where choice still lives. Because most temptations don't need to be conquered, they just need to be outlived. That 10-minute delay is your rebellion against autopilot. Your way of saying, I'm not a slave to this. Sometimes you'll still give in, and that's okay. But many times, you'll realize you don't want it anymore, or that you want something deeper. 10 minutes gave you that clarity, that power, that breath. You don't need to be stronger than the temptation forever. You just need to be stronger than it right now. And that's only 10 minutes. You can wait. You can win. One urge at a time.
Visualize failing dramatically. Success gets all the attention. Vision boards, manifestation, dream big. But sometimes, what you really need isn't more hope. It's a full-blown, gut-wrenching mental collapse. You need to visualize failing. Not softly, but spectacularly. Imagine the presentation flopping, the launch tanking, the breakup happening in public. Go there. Feel it. Let the shame, panic, and embarrassment flood you. Not to torture yourself, but to free yourself. Because the fear of failure is often worse than the failure itself. It lurks in the shadows, vague and monstrous, whispering what-ifs that paralyze you. But when you shine a spotlight on it, when you play out the crash in vivid, painful detail, you strip it of its mystery. You look it in the eye and ask the most important question of all. Then what? Then you cry. Then you get up. Then you regroup. Then you text a friend, take a breath, and find a next step. You don't disappear. You don't shatter. You adapt. You heal. And that realization is everything. Because the moment you prove to yourself, even in imagination, that you can survive the fall, the fear loses its claws. This isn't masochism. It's emotional inoculation. It's rehearsal for resilience. And when the real moment comes, when your voice shakes, when things go sideways, you'll be ready. Not because you're fearless,
but because you've already seen the worst, and it didn't destroy you. Failure stops owning you once you realize you can walk through the fire and keep walking. That vision, that's power.
Celebrate micro-wins publicly. You wait for the big moment, the promotion, the launch, the breakthrough, before you let yourself feel proud. You tell yourself it's not worth sharing yet, not enough yet, not real enough to be seen. But that silence turns into starvation because your brain and your heart thrive on momentum. And momentum doesn't come from the mountaintop. It comes from every small, messy, unglamorous step along the way. That's why you need to celebrate your micro-wins and do it out loud. Post the progress photo. Share the sentence you finally wrote. Tell someone you cleaned your inbox, said no, or simply got out of bed. This isn't ego, it's oxygen. It's the kind of recognition that turns effort into energy. And when you share it with others, even one person, you invite encouragement, accountability, and connection. People don't need your perfection. They need your realness. They need to see the tiny, brave acts of moving forward. When you celebrate those moments, you give others permission to do the same. You start to build something sacred, a culture of momentum fueled by honesty. Your brain wires itself around what gets rewarded. So if you only reward the final product, you'll start to hate the process. You'll rush through it. You'll quit. But if you reward the showing up, the starting, the trying, you'll fall in love with the climb. Celebrate the micro-win every day if you must. Shout it, whisper it, share it with someone who gets it. Because every win, no matter how small, is proof that you're still in the fight. And that's worth everything.
The 2-minute rule for procrastination. Procrastination doesn't always roar. It whispers. It tells you a task is too small to matter, or just big enough to avoid. You glance at the dirty mug, the unread email, the form you haven't filled out. You'll get to it later, you tell yourself. But later grows teeth. And suddenly, you're drowning in tiny, undone things that quietly eat away at your peace. The fix? The 2-minute rule. If something takes less than 2 minutes, do it now. Not after this call. Not once you feel motivated. Now. Because the truth is, it's not about saving time. It's about reclaiming energy. Every unfinished task becomes a mental tab left open in your brain. Each one whispers, "I'm still here." The more tabs you leave open, the slower your mental browser runs. Doing it now, washing the cup, responding to the message, hitting send, closes the loop. It gives you a jolt of progress. And that jolt matters. It builds momentum. It builds identity. You go from someone who delays life to someone who handles it, one tiny task at a time. It also trains your brain to stop negotiating. No overthinking, no drama, just action. The moment you see a task, you move. That pattern becomes muscle memory. And over time, your life becomes lighter, clearer, less haunted by small things waiting in the dark. You won't always be able to conquer the world in one day, but you can wash the dish. You can send the text. You can build a better life 2 minutes at a time.
Rehearse stressful conversations in your mind. There's always that moment right before a confrontation, an apology, or a boundary. You feel your pulse rise to your throat, words tangle, scenarios spiral. You rehearse disaster, and that's exactly why you need to rehearse on purpose. Not to obsess, but to train. Because what you fear isn't just what might be said, it's not knowing how you'll respond.
Rehearsal changes that. This isn't about scripting perfection, it's about wiring calm. You sit with yourself, close your eyes, and walk through the entire conversation. Tone, posture, breath. You hear your own voice saying what you need to say. You imagine their face shifting. Maybe they interrupt, react, or misunderstand. And you practice staying grounded. You rehearse the chaos not to control it, but to stop fearing it. The brain doesn't fully differentiate between real experience and vividly imagined experience. So when the real moment comes, you're not starting from zero. You've walked this path before. You've heard yourself hold the line, stay soft, clarify your truth. And something deep inside you remembers, I can do this. You become less reactive, more rooted, less focused on being liked, more focused on being clear. You don't panic when things get messy because you planned for messy. You rehearsed it, felt it, survived it. You don't need endless courage. You just need a few minutes of foresight. Every hard conversation becomes lighter when you've already met it in your mind first. Because confidence isn't born in the moment. It's built before the moment, quietly and intentionally inside you.
Write it down, then walk away. There comes a moment when your mind becomes a war zone, flooded with racing thoughts, looping worries, tangled what-ifs. The inner noise gets so loud, you forget what silence even feels like. You try to sort it out in your head, but the more you think, the messier it becomes. That's when you do the one thing that instantly shifts everything. Dump it on paper, then walk away. Not to analyze it, not to fix it, not to judge it, just to get it out. Every fear, every half-formed sentence, every angry draft, every painful truth. Spill it, scribble it. Don't worry about structure or grammar, just let your brain bleed onto the page. Because the moment your thoughts leave your mind and become ink, they stop holding you hostage. Your thoughts are loudest when they're trapped inside. Writing gives them form, borders, edges, boundaries. It turns chaos into something visible. And once visible, it becomes separate from you. It's no longer you spiraling. It's just a page filled with feelings. And then walk away. Don't read it, don't edit it, don't solve it. That part can come later, if it even needs to. For now, your job is to release, not resolve. In the silence that follows, something sacred enters. Quiet, relief, distance, clarity. The kind that only arrives when your mind stops choking on its own storm. You are not your thoughts. You are the sky. The paper holds the weather. And sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is write it down and leave it behind.
Use physical tokens for focus. The world tugs at your attention like static. Notifications, noise, thoughts you never invited, all clawing for space in your mind. And sometimes, no matter how hard you try to just focus, it slips through your fingers like smoke. But there's a simple, almost primal way to anchor your mind through a physical token. Something real, something you touch, hold, wear, or place in your line of sight every time it's time to go deep. A coin, a ring, a certain pen, a bracelet or desk object with weight and meaning. Not because it's magic, but because it's yours. And because it's tied to a signal. Now we focus. Each time you reach for it, your brain begins to associate that tactile moment with stillness, presence, and attention. Over time, the habit becomes reflex. The mind hears the silence before it starts. It's how monks use beads, how performers use rituals, how athletes use pre-game movements. You train the mind through the body. When your thoughts scatter, the object reminds you, this is sacred time. You feel it in your fingers. You see it beside you. It becomes your lighthouse. When distraction clouds the shore, you don't need more discipline. You need cues. Physical tokens cut through the noise in a way motivation never could. They carry intention, energy, memory. Even on days when you're tired or overwhelmed, the token whispers, remember who you are when you're focused. And that whisper might be all you need to begin.
End the day with one unfinished task. We're wired to crave completion, ticking off the final box, shutting the laptop, ending the day with everything done. It feels clean, satisfying, safe. But what if that very satisfaction is what steals your momentum tomorrow? What if the best way to start strong is to leave something undone? Finishing your day with one unfinished task isn't laziness, it's strategy. It creates tension. It sparks curiosity. It gives your brain a hook to grab onto the moment you wake. Instead of facing a blank slate, you're walking back into something already in motion. The resistance is lower. The path is warmer. The hardest part, starting, is already behind you. This trick borrows from Hemingway, who famously stopped mid-sentence so he'd know exactly where to begin the next day. It's a breadcrumb trail for your future self, a soft promise that tomorrow has direction. And in a world that bombards you with uncertainty, that direction becomes an anchor. It can be anything: a half-written email, a project left mid-flow, a note scribbled in haste. Don't close the loop. Keep the door cracked open. Let your subconscious simmer with it overnight. You'll be stunned by how often solutions appear in dreams, or how quickly momentum kicks in when you return. Perfection says end the day clean, but progress? Progress knows how to leave the page messy so the pen is already moving when the sun rises. Because the next day doesn't start when you wake up. It starts with what you chose to leave behind.
Reread journals from 6 months ago. You think you haven't grown. You feel stuck, spinning, chasing the same goals, facing the same fears. Progress feels invisible when you're living inside it. But then you open a journal from 6 months ago, and suddenly the truth screams off the page. You see the version of yourself who was drowning in something you've already survived. You read the confusion you've since untangled, the heartbreak you thought would swallow you whole, the doubts that no longer have power over you. Rereading old journal entries is time travel for the soul. It's a mirror with memory. It shows you what you once begged the universe for, what you feared most, what you couldn't yet see. It breaks the illusion that nothing's changing. You realize you've been becoming this entire time. It's not always pretty. Sometimes you cringe. Sometimes you ache. But that ache is proof. Proof that you've moved, that you've healed in places you forgot were broken. You've learned things that once felt impossible. And even if you're not yet where you want to be, you're miles from where you were. You also get to reclaim things. Dreams you shelved, passions you abandoned, truths you whispered in private and forgot to believe in. Your past self becomes a witness, not of failure, but of evolution. And when you feel like giving up, those old pages remind you that you already come through storms you thought would last forever. Growth hides in plain sight, in your own handwriting, waiting to be seen, waiting to show you who you've quietly, fiercely, undeniably become.
Label your coping patterns.
When life squeezes you, when stress hits, when shame rises, when the world feels too loud, you cope. We all do. Sometimes with food, sometimes with scrolling, sometimes with withdrawal, sarcasm, overachievement, or pretending everything's fine. Coping isn't the problem. The problem is when it runs your life in disguise. When your coping patterns wear masks and whisper, "This is just who I am." But here's the truth. If you can label it, you can lead it. The act of naming your coping mechanisms strips them of invisibility. This is my avoider. That's the achiever in panic mode. Here comes the numbness again. You shine a flashlight into the dark corners of your mind and gently say, "I see you." Labeling doesn't shame the behavior, it separates it from your identity. It turns patterns into characters, reflexes into signals. And when you name something, it loses power. You stop being the stress eater, the ghoster, the workaholic, and start becoming someone who notices the urge to escape, then chooses what to do next. You can't change what you haven't defined. You can't heal what you're still pretending is normal. But once you say, this is the part of me that shuts down when I feel unsafe, you're no longer trapped in it. You're standing outside it, hand on the doorknob, with the option to walk a new way. Awareness is power. And sometimes the first act of healing is whispering the name of the thing that once controlled you in silence.
Deep breathing for nervous system reset. In moments of panic, stress, or even silent overwhelm, your breath shortens. It becomes shallow, clipped, barely there, and you don't even notice. You just feel off, uneasy, disconnected. But beneath every racing heart, every clenched jaw, every sleepless night, there's a rhythm waiting to reset you. Deep breathing. This isn't about calm vibes or fluffy wellness advice. This is biology. When you breathe deeply, low and slow, belly expanding, exhale longer than inhale, you send a direct message to your nervous system: we are safe. The parasympathetic system responds. Your heartbeat slows, your muscles unclench, your brain softens. You don't have to think your way out of stress. You can breathe your way out. The power of this is staggering. You can shift your entire state in 30 seconds. You can interrupt anxiety, ground yourself in the present, and create space between stimulus and reaction. You stop spiraling and start pausing. You step out of autopilot, and in that pause, everything becomes possible again. One deep breath won't fix your life, but it can stop a fight. It can prevent a panic attack. It can help you choose kindness when you want to scream, clarity when you want to run, patience when you want to break. It reconnects you with your body, your control, your power. You've had this tool your entire life. No one had to teach it to you. You just forgot. Now close your eyes, inhale slowly, exhale slower again. Feel your whole self come back online.
Meditate for 10 minutes a day. The world is loud. Notifications, deadlines, arguments, spinning thoughts, self-doubt. Your mind becomes a crowded room, everyone shouting over everyone else. You try to find focus, peace, answers, but all you get is static. What if the solution wasn't more doing, but less? What if the most radical, powerful thing you could do was simply sit still? 10 minutes. That's all it takes to shift the entire rhythm of your nervous system. To sit with your back straight, your eyes soft, your breath steady. To watch your thoughts instead of chasing them. Meditation isn't about emptying your mind. It's about witnessing it. creating space between the noise and the you that hears it. In those 10 minutes, you meet the part of yourself that isn't panicked, performative, or afraid. You meet stillness, the quiet truth underneath all the stories. Your heart slows, your body softens, and you remember you are not your thoughts, you are not your tasks, you are not your fears. You are the one watching all of it. The first few minutes might be uncomfortable. Your mind will itch to move, to check, to flee. That's okay. Let it, and stay. Because every breath you sit through, that resistance is a muscle getting stronger, a fire getting calmer, a life returning to its center. 10 minutes a day isn't a luxury. It's a return, a reset, a reclaiming of yourself in a world that constantly tries to pull you away. Close your eyes, be still, and meet the version of you that doesn't need fixing, only remembering.
Count backward by sevens to stop anxiety. Your vision narrows. Your thoughts race like a storm with no sky. You try to reason with it, soothe it, silence it, but nothing works. Because in that moment, logic can't reach you. You don't need to outthink the panic. You need to hijack it. And one of the fastest ways to do that is absurdly simple. Count backward by sevens. Start from 100, 93, 86, 79. It feels strange. That's the point. Your brain is forced to shift gears, to stop the emotional spin and engage the part that handles focus, math, and order. It doesn't matter how far you get. What matters is the redirection, the mental interruption, the pattern break that says, this is not a crisis, it's a misfire, and I'm taking the wheel back. The beauty of this method is that it's mechanical. No feelings required. You don't need to believe anything or fix anything. You just start counting, and your breath follows. Your awareness follows. Slowly, the static clears. You become present. Not because you've calmed down, but because you've rerouted the energy that was running wild. It's the same trick used in trauma therapy, in combat training, in high-performance coaching. Not because it's magic, but because it works. It gives your mind a job, something to do other than panic. And in giving it that job, you reclaim your agency. You remember, you are not your fear. You are the one doing the math. You are the one pulling yourself back to shore, one number at a time.
Focus on what you can control. When everything feels like it's slipping, when plans fall apart, people disappoint you, or the world simply refuses to behave, you start grasping, begging for stability, looking everywhere for something solid to hold on to. And the harder you grip things you can't control, the more powerless you feel. That's where the spiral begins. But here's the truth that can stop it cold. You don't need to control everything. You only need to control what's yours. Your breath, your tone, your choices, your responses, your effort. These are yours. No one can take them from you. And when you return to them, when you shrink your focus down to what's actually within your grasp, you rediscover your power. The rest, the timing, the outcome, their reaction, the noise, that's wind. You can scream at it, curse it, chase it, or you can accept it and keep walking. Focusing on what you can control is not resignation. It's liberation. It's drawing a line around your energy and saying, this is sacred. It's refusing to leak your soul into battles that were never yours to win. In every moment of chaos, there is always one thing, just one, you can control. Find it. Do it. Own it. That tiny act will ground you, rebuild you, and lead you to the next one, and the next, until suddenly you're not flailing anymore. You're leading yourself.
That's how peace is found, not by mastering the storm, but by mastering your anchor every single time.
Use the Pomodoro technique. You sit down to work, and suddenly everything but work becomes urgent. Your phone buzzes, your thoughts wander, your energy dips. You tell yourself you'll start soon, but soon keeps slipping away. The task feels endless, heavy, and your brain wants anything but stillness. What you need isn't motivation, it's containment. That's where the Pomodoro technique saves you, not with pressure, but with boundaries. You set a timer for 25 minutes. That's it, one focused block. You work. No distractions, no switching tabs, no checking messages. You tell your brain, just get through this window. And something miraculous happens. The task stops feeling infinite. It becomes a sprint instead of a marathon. You don't have to conquer the mountain. Just take one clear step. When the timer ends, you stop. You breathe, walk, drink water, 5 minutes of freedom, then another round. These cycles, focus bursts followed by short breaks, rewire your mind to crave rhythm instead of overwhelm. They create urgency without panic, structure without rigidity. You stop waiting to feel like it and start showing up in manageable waves. This technique builds trust with yourself. Each session is a promise kept. Each timer is a container for your energy. No more hours wasted drifting. No more guilt for needing a break. You're not chained to your task. You're dancing with it. The Pomodoro technique isn't about productivity hacks. It's about reclaiming your time from chaos. 25 minutes at a time, one decision at a time, until focus becomes less of a fight and more of a ritual.
Set anti-goals. We're taught to chase goals that are bigger, faster, louder. Visualize what you want. Dream of the perfect life, the ideal day, the peak version of you. But sometimes clarity doesn't come from knowing what you do want. It comes from knowing exactly what you don't. That's where anti-goals come in. Anti-goals are the things you never want to feel again. The moments that drain you, trap you, unravel you. Working 12-hour days and forgetting to eat. Saying yes when your gut screams no. Waking up with dread in your chest. Missing your kid's laugh because you're glued to a screen. These aren't just bad moments, they're warning signs. They're the life you refuse to build. And when you define those clearly, something powerful happens. Direction. You stop trying to become someone else's version of success. You start building guardrails that protect your sanity, your energy, your joy. You no longer chase blindly. You design deliberately. You say, I don't want a job that makes me anxious on Sunday night. I don't want a calendar that erases my evenings. I don't want to feel numb by noon. These anti-goals become filters. Every decision, every opportunity, every next step gets measured against them. And if it smells like burnout, if it feels like self-betrayal, you don't compromise. You walk away. This isn't negativity. It's clarity. It's taking the pain you've lived and using it as a blueprint, not for revenge, but for freedom. Because sometimes the life you want is hiding inside the one you never want to repeat.
Smile before phone calls. Smile before you speak on the phone, before you say a single word, before your voice hits the line, before the conversation even begins. Something unspoken is already shaping the outcome. Your face, specifically your smile. You might think it's irrelevant on a call, unseen and unnecessary, but the truth is the person on the other end can feel it. The difference in tone, warmth, energy, it all starts the moment your lips curve upward. Smiling before you speak isn't about being fake. It's about setting your internal frequency. When you smile, even slightly, your body releases a cascade of chemicals. Dopamine, endorphins, serotonin. Your vocal cords relax.
your breath deepens, and your voice takes on a tone that's calmer, kinder, more inviting. You sound human, alive, like someone others want to listen to. This 1-second habit has power. It softens tension. It disarms coldness. It can change how someone hears your pitch, your apology, your check-in, or even your bad news. Not because the words change, but because you do. The person receiving your message doesn't just hear what you say, they feel who you are in that moment. Especially in a world where tone is lost in text and misread over emails, voice calls become your most emotional tool, and energy leaks through. Smile before you speak, and that energy becomes contagious. Your message lands not as noise, but as presence. Try it even when you're alone, nervous, or tired. Let your smile shape your sound, and watch how people lean in without ever knowing why.
Don't argue when hungry. There's a moment when everything feels louder. The smallest comment sounds like criticism. The tiniest mistake feels like betrayal. You think you're furious. You think you're hurt. But underneath the storm is something embarrassingly human. You're just hungry. And hungry brains do not make peace. They make war. Hunger doesn't just gnaw at your stomach. It hijacks your mind. Your blood sugar drops, your mood plummets, and your brain becomes hyper-reactive. You hear tone where there is none. You invent meaning in pauses. You escalate tiny tensions into full-blown explosions. You're convinced it's all justified because in that moment, it feels true. But it's not. It's fuel-starved thinking. It's biology dressed as rage. Arguing while hungry is like trying to fix a leaking roof during a thunderstorm. You're too wet, too frantic, too raw. You don't want resolution. You want release. And what comes out is rarely what you mean. It's sharper, messier. Cruel words you can't take back. Silences you can't unmake. The fix isn't complicated. Eat. Even a few bites. Even something small. Let your body stabilize so your mind can follow. Breathe before you speak. Pause before you pounce. Step away from the conversation long enough to feed the part of you that's screaming beneath the anger. You're not weak for being affected by hunger. You're wired that way. But strength is knowing your patterns and choosing to interrupt them before they turn into damage. Some arguments aren't about principle. They're about low blood sugar. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do for a relationship is eat a damn sandwich first.
Say, "Let me get back to you." There's a pressure that comes with being asked something on the spot. An expectation to have the answer now, to decide now, to react now. And in that heat, most people panic. They say yes too quickly, they say no out of fear, they overpromise, underthink, and carry the weight of impulsive choices long after the moment passes. But there's a phrase that cuts through the urgency, restores your clarity, and returns your power. Let me get back to you. It's simple, respectful, unshakable. It creates space where pressure once lived. You don't have to explain or apologize. You just draw a boundary between stimulus and response, between their timeline and your truth. And that boundary becomes your breathing room. When you say, "Let me get back to you," you shift the dynamic. You signal thoughtfulness, not hesitation. You buy time to reflect, to check in with yourself, to make sure your answer isn't rooted in people-pleasing, guilt, or panic. You give yourself a chance to respond from alignment, not survival. This phrase is powerful in business, in relationships, in uncomfortable conversations. It's the armor that protects you from reactive commitments and the bridge that carries you toward intentional ones. It tells the world, I take my words seriously. I choose with care. And in doing so, people trust you more, not less. You don't owe instant answers. You owe yourself the space to speak with integrity. And sometimes, the most confident thing you can say is not yet.
Ask questions instead of making statements. There's a reflex we all carry, the urge to declare, to explain, to correct, to say what we believe and assume that belief will land. But statements close doors. They end conversations. They feel like verdicts. Questions, on the other hand, unlock something far more powerful: connection. When you ask instead of tell, you invite. You disarm. You signal curiosity instead of control. What made you feel that way? Carries more weight than, that's not true. How did you come to that conclusion? Builds more trust than, you're wrong. And trust is the soil where real understanding grows. Questions give people room to unfold. They feel seen, not attacked, valued, not dismissed. And in that softening, defenses drop, egos loosen, minds open. You don't have to win an argument. You just have to ask the right question and let the silence do the work. This isn't manipulation. It's emotional intelligence. It's knowing that people don't change because they're told. They change when they feel heard. And questions are how you make space for that to happen. It works in conflict, in parenting, in negotiation, in love. Every time you could speak, ask instead. And watch how quickly the energy shifts. Questions aren't weaker than statements. They're braver. They require patience, empathy, and a willingness to hear something unexpected. But when you use them with intention, they don't just create better conversations, they create better people, including you.
Get sunlight before 10 a.m. You wake up groggy, fog still clinging to your thoughts, dragging your body through the rituals of another day. Coffee feels like survival. Motivation is nowhere. And you wonder, why do I feel like this? The answer might be terrifyingly simple. Your body hasn't seen the sun. Getting sunlight before 10 a.m. isn't some wellness trend. It's biological programming. Your brain runs on a clock, and that clock is set by light. Natural morning light tells your body, wake up, reset, align. It triggers cortisol, not the stress kind, but the energy kind. It regulates melatonin so it fades at the right time. It starts the countdown to restful sleep at the very start of the day. And when you skip that light, your entire system drifts out of rhythm. Even 5 minutes outside, with your eyes exposed, no glass between you and the sky, can be enough. It boosts dopamine, increases alertness, and calms your nervous system. It whispers to your body, you're alive, and this is the time to rise. You stop chasing energy through sugar, caffeine, or willpower because now it's coming from within. You'll feel it the first day. Your focus sharpens, your mood lifts, your cravings dull. And by nightfall, your body is ready for real sleep, the kind that heals. You don't need to change your life, just your morning. Step outside. Let the light hit your skin, your eyes, your bones. It's not just sunlight. It's a signal, and it tells every cell in your body, you're here, it's time. Let's begin.
Drink water before coffee. You roll out of bed groggy, heavy, craving that one thing that feels like salvation: coffee. It's warm, it's fast, it's familiar, and without even thinking, you reach for it like a ritual. But beneath that ritual is a betrayal. Because the very thing you think is waking you up might actually be depleting you. Before your first cup, your body is screaming for something else: water. After 6 to 8 hours of sleep, your body is dehydrated. Your brain is foggy, not from lack of caffeine, but from lack of hydration. Yet most people skip water and flood their system with a diuretic, a stimulant, a quick jolt that pushes cortisol even higher. Your nervous system jolts awake, but it's not balanced. It's running on fumes. The anxiety, the crash, the jittery edge, half of it isn't the coffee. It's what's missing before it. Drink a full glass of water before your first sip of coffee. Not just a few sips, a full glass. Feel your cells reawaken. Feel your clarity sharpen before the caffeine hits. That simple act of hydration shifts your energy, smooths your digestion, and stabilizes your mood. It's a tiny act of discipline that creates a ripple of resilience across your whole morning. You're not giving up coffee, you're giving your body what it actually needs first. Then the coffee becomes enhancement, not emergency fuel. One glass, one pause, one moment of care before stimulation. That's not weakness, that's wisdom. And your body will thank you in every breath, every beat, and every thought that follows.
The 5-4-3-2-1 grounding technique. Panic doesn't ask, it arrives, suddenly, loudly, all at once. Your thoughts blur, your chest tightens, and the world tilts sideways. In those moments, your mind becomes a hurricane of what-ifs, and no amount of logic can cut through the noise. What you need isn't to fight the storm, it's to anchor yourself to the present. That's where the 5-4-3-2-1 grounding exercise becomes your lifeline. It's not therapy, it's not spiritual, it's tactical. You start where you are, with what's real. Name 5 things you can see, anything. A light bulb, your hand, the corner of the ceiling. Then name 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 you can smell, 1 you can taste. And with every sense, your brain is pulled out of fear and back into reality. Not some imagined disaster, not the fear of what might happen, just now. This exercise short-circuits the spiral. It breaks the loop by flooding your mind with sensory data, things your anxious brain can't ignore. It forces awareness back into your body. Your breath slows, your jaw unclenches, and piece by piece, the world steadies. You're not escaping the panic. You're returning to yourself inside it. The simplicity is what makes it powerful. You can do it in public, in silence, in chaos. No one needs to know. But you'll know, because suddenly your thoughts have a thread again. And that thread, pulled one sense at a time, leads you home. Back to the moment, back to safety, back to control.
Assume positive intent. A missed call, a delayed reply, a short message, and suddenly your mind starts filling in the gaps with stories. They're mad. I did something wrong. They're pulling away. Just like that, you're no longer reacting to reality. You're reacting to fear. Assumptions become weapons, and suddenly you're in a fight that never actually happened. But there's a quieter, braver choice that changes everything. Assume positive intent. It doesn't mean you become naive. It doesn't mean you ignore red flags. It means you stop letting fear narrate the story of every silence, every pause, every perceived slight. You choose to believe, until proven otherwise, that people aren't trying to hurt you, that they're tired, distracted, overwhelmed, not cruel, that maybe, just maybe, it's not about you at all. This mindset softens your nervous system. It lowers the drawbridge on your heart. You stop preparing for war every time someone blinks the wrong way. And you start giving space for grace, for understanding, for truth to actually emerge. Because when you assume good intent, your energy changes. Your words are warmer. Your presence feels safer. You invite honesty instead of defensiveness. And here's the twist. People often rise to the level of belief you place in them. When you expect goodness, it becomes easier for them to offer it. Not always, but often enough to change your world. Assuming positive intent isn't weakness, it's a power move. A decision to protect your peace over your pride. To meet the world with courage instead of armor. And sometimes, that one small shift is what keeps a relationship or your sanity intact.
Keep your workspace minimal. Your environment speaks louder than you think. Every object in your line of sight has a voice. And when your desk is cluttered, they all speak at once. Sticky notes shout reminders. Cables scream chaos. Half-finished mugs whisper neglect. All that noise, visual, mental, emotional, drains your focus before you've even begun. You're not lazy, you're overstimulated. And the solution isn't more discipline, it's less distraction. A minimal workspace isn't about aesthetics, it's about neurology. Your brain craves order. It performs best in spaces where nothing competes for attention. When your desk is clear, your mind clears with it. The friction fades. You sit down and instantly know what you're here to do. Start with what you need and strip away the rest. One task, one tool, one focus. Let your environment mirror your intention. The silence of an empty desk becomes fertile ground for deep work, clean thought, and flow. You stop resisting the work and start entering it fully, deliberately, without invisible anchors pulling you in 10 directions. Even the act of clearing your space becomes ritual, a way of saying, "This matters. I'm showing up." You turn chaos into command, mess into mindfulness. Your workspace becomes a statement. I own this moment. I'm not hiding behind clutter. I'm here to build something that deserves my full self. Simplicity isn't emptiness, it's power. It's a declaration of focus in a world that thrives on distraction. And when you remove the excess, what's left is everything you actually need.
Use if-then planning. The moment comes and life throws a curve. You're tired, triggered, pulled in 10 directions. And without a plan, you default to the easiest path: avoidance, excuses, delay. That's why willpower alone isn't enough. You need a decision before the moment hits. That's the magic of if-then planning. It's a mental contract, a roadmap. You say, if X happens, then I will do Y. If I feel overwhelmed at work, then I'll take a 2-minute breath before reacting. If I crave junk food at night, then I'll drink a full glass of water first. If my brain says, skip the gym, then I'll lace up my shoes and walk for 5 minutes. This isn't a gimmick, it's psychology. When you give your brain a clear contingency plan, it doesn't panic when challenges hit. It executes. You take the guesswork out of stress. You replace emotional chaos with clarity. You don't have to trust your future self to be strong. You just have to set a trapdoor of choice ahead of time. These micro decisions build resilience. They break the chain of impulsive, regret-fueled behavior. And most importantly, they give you back your agency. Because success isn't just built on what you do when things go well, it's built on how you respond when they don't. If you fall, then you get back up. If you stumble, then you shift. That's not failure, that's a system. And systems beat shame every time.
Sleep with paper nearby. Night comes, and with it, silence. But your mind doesn't rest. It awakens.
Thoughts rise like ghosts. Ideas, regrets, unfinished conversations, sudden sparks of brilliance. You try to sleep, but your brain has other plans. It tosses you memories you didn't ask for, solutions you couldn't find all day, fears you buried under busyness. This isn't insomnia, it's mental overflow. And one of the simplest ways to reclaim your peace is brutally low-tech. Keep paper beside your bed. Not your phone, not a screen, a pen, a notebook, something real, something tactile. Because when your thoughts flood in at 2 a.m., the worst thing you can do is keep them in your head. They loop, they intensify, they multiply. But the moment you write them down, they release. They leave your nervous system and land safely on the page. Ideas you don't want to lose? Captured. Anxieties you can't fix at midnight? Contained. A to-do you forgot? No longer spinning. This isn't just a productivity trick, it's mental survival. It tells your mind, you don't have to hold this anymore. I've got it. And there's a quiet magic in that ritual. You wake up lighter, clearer, more grounded. You stop fearing the night as a battleground for overthinking. Instead, it becomes a soft, sacred space where your mind gets to breathe, knowing it has a place to offload. Paper doesn't judge. It doesn't buzz. It listens. And in the quiet dark, that's all your mind really wants. To be heard. Then finally, gently, you let go. Limit screen time before bed. You're tired, but not enough. You reach for your phone, scroll through someone else's life, watch one more video, one more reel, one more thing to fill the silence. Minutes bleed into hours. Your eyes sting, your thoughts blur, and when you finally try to sleep, your mind won't stop spinning. You stare at the ceiling, wondering why rest feels so far away. The answer is glowing in your hand. Screens before bed are a slow theft, not just of time, but of peace. The blue light suppresses melatonin, your body's natural sleep hormone. Your brain, wired to respond to light with alertness, now thinks it's daytime. And the content, chaotic, addictive, emotionally charged, floods your system with dopamine and stress. You don't wind down, you wind up. You bring the whole world into your bedroom and wonder why you can't sleep inside it. But when you limit screen time before bed, even just 30 to 60 minutes, you reclaim your sanctuary. You send a signal. It's time to slow down. Your nervous system exhales. Your thoughts return to your own. Your body prepares for repair, not reaction. This boundary doesn't just change your night. It transforms your mornings. You wake with less fog, less fatigue, more calm. And over time, you remember what it's like to sleep deeply, to drift without interruption, to be alone with yourself in the best way. Put the phone down, not forever, just for now. Let the light fade. Let your mind follow. Give yourself the ending your day deserves. Quiet, restful, real.
Ask, will this matter in 5 years? You're spiraling over a text left unread, a meeting gone awkward, and it feels huge, unforgivable, final. But pause, take a breath, and ask one quiet, seismic question. Will this matter in 5 years? Not in 5 hours, not tomorrow, 5 years. Suddenly, the weight begins to shift. The urgency softens, because most of what consumes you right now, most of what pulls you into stress and self-doubt, won't even register in the long arc of your life. The awkward comment? Forgotten. The missed opportunity? Replaced. The person who disappointed you? A memory, a lesson, a closed chapter. This question isn't about dismissing your feelings. It's about calibrating them.
It's about lifting your gaze from the microscopic to the panoramic. It gives you perspective when emotion tries to make everything feel permanent. It reminds you that time is a filter, and most things don't survive it. And for the few things that will matter in 5 years, that's where your energy belongs. That's what you protect. That's the relationship you fight for, the boundary you reinforce, the dream you keep building. Everything else, let it pass. Let it shrink. Asking this question doesn't erase your problems, but it rescues your mind from drowning in the shallow end. It puts you back in the seat of your own life, steering with clarity instead of reacting from fear. And sometimes, that one question is enough to save your day or your sanity.
Keep a brag file. There are days when doubt creeps in like smoke, quiet, invasive, hard to ignore. You forget what you've done, who you've helped, what mountains you've moved. You downplay your progress, shrink your wins, tell yourself it was luck, timing, or nothing special at all. And that's exactly why you need a brag file. A brag file is a sacred, unapologetic archive of your wins. Every compliment, every thank you message, every goal crushed, every moment you made someone's day or saved your own. Screenshots, emails, photos, journal entries, collected like gold, not to feed your ego, but to remind you who the hell you are when you forget. Because you will forget. You'll hit a wall, face rejection, feel like a fraud. And when that happens, your brag file becomes a lifeline, a mirror of proof, not of perfection, but of impact, of resilience, of growth. It silences the imposter syndrome with facts, with receipts, with you, on paper, in pixels, raw and undeniable. This isn't arrogance, it's self-preservation. It's giving yourself a place to go when the world feels too loud and your voice feels too small. It's not for anyone else, it's for the version of you that needs reminding. You've done hard things before, and you'll do them again. Keep it on your desktop, in your notes app, in a folder called Read This When You Forget. Because forgetting is human, but staying forgotten, that's optional. Your story deserves a record, and your light deserves to be seen, especially by you.
Compliment people behind their backs. Most compliments vanish the moment they're spoken. Nice words, polite nods, a smile exchanged, and forgotten. But when you say something kind about someone behind their back, something extraordinary happens. The words travel, they ripple. And when they finally circle back to the person you spoke of, they hit differently. Because now it wasn't said to impress them, it was said about them, without them. And that makes it feel real. He said you handled that brilliantly. She told me how much she respects the way you lead. Those compliments carry weight because they weren't filtered through performance or politeness. They weren't shaped to gain favor. They were pure. And when someone hears that you spoke well of them when you had nothing to gain, it sinks into their soul. It builds trust, respect, quiet, powerful connection. Complimenting behind someone's back flips the script. Instead of gossiping negativity, you become a secret force for good, a builder of reputations, a soft architect of morale. You don't just lift someone's spirit, you lift their standing. And in a world wired for cynicism and complaint, that's rebellion. It doesn't have to be grand, just true, just generous. It may never get back to them, but sometimes it will. And when it does, it lands not as flattery, but as evidence that who they are speaks loud enough for others to notice. And that someone, maybe you, was kind enough to carry that truth forward without needing applause. So speak goodness into the unseen.
Let your praise echo in places where ego isn't listening. That's where it matters most.
Set alarms for emotional check-ins. You scroll, you reply, you react. You're constantly adjusting, executing, responding to everything around you. But beneath all that motion, your emotional state hums quietly, unnoticed. You feel things, tension, fatigue, resentment, anxiety, but you don't name them. You don't stop. You just keep going until you snap, shut down, or spiral. Not because you're weak, but because no one ever taught you to pause and ask, how am I really? That's where emotional check-in alarms come in, like small doses of medicine for your inner world. A simple buzz on your phone once or twice a day that cuts through the noise and asks one thing: what's happening inside me right now? No judgment, no fixing, just awareness. You pause, you breathe, you name it. I'm tense, I'm scattered, I actually feel okay. Naming breaks the loop. It gives your inner world a seat at the table before it erupts or collapses in silence. It teaches you to listen, not just to the chaos outside, but to the quiet signals within. This practice changes everything: how you work, how you relate, how you parent, how you lead. You stop projecting unspoken emotions onto innocent moments. You start responding instead of reacting. You reclaim the power to shift before things explode. Alarms aren't just for appointments. They're for alignment. They remind you that your inner state matters, that your feelings deserve airtime. Checking in doesn't make you fragile, it makes you awake. So set the alarm twice a day. Label it feel. Let it pull you out of the blur. Let that tiny pause become a ritual of remembering who you are beneath all the doing.
Remove I should from your vocabulary. Every time you say, I should, you carve a quiet wound into your day. I should work out. I should call them. I should be better, faster, stronger, more together by now. It sounds harmless, maybe even motivational. But underneath it, there's shame, not strength. Should doesn't inspire action. It buries it under guilt. It frames your life as one long failure to meet invisible standards you never agreed to. I should carries judgment. It whispers that you're always behind, always lacking, always late to your own life. And the more you say it, the more you believe that who you are right now isn't enough. That happiness lives somewhere down the line waiting for you to should yourself into being worthy. But what if you replaced it? What if I should became I want to, I choose to, or I will? Suddenly, guilt becomes agency. The task becomes a decision, not an obligation wrapped in self-punishment. You reclaim your power. You act from clarity, not compliance. You stop chasing some imaginary, perfect version of yourself and start honoring the real one, the one who's trying, learning, and growing. Even noticing the word should is a quiet revolution. Catch it mid-sentence. Feel how heavy it lands in your chest. Then rewrite the line. Speak from desire. Speak from ownership. Speak like someone who doesn't have to earn their worth before taking a breath. You don't owe the world a perfect version of yourself. You don't have to live under the shadow of should. You can choose. And in that choice, you finally come alive.
Use visual timers. Time has a strange way of dissolving. You sit down to work and suddenly an hour's gone. You've done everything except the thing you meant to do. Or maybe it's the opposite. You stare at the clock and every minute stretches like molasses, your focus breaking into fragments. In both cases, time turns into the enemy, either too fast or painfully slow. That's where visual timers change everything. Unlike digital clocks that tick away in silence or countdowns that hide in the corner, visual timers show time passing.
You can actually see the red shrinking, the sand falling, the circle closing. Time becomes physical, tangible, something your brain can track. And when that happens, time becomes real. Your attention sharpens, your energy rises, your mind suddenly says, "This matters now." Visual timers are especially powerful for ADHD minds, for procrastinators, for creatives who lose hours in a blink. A simple 25-minute red arc fading across your desk isn't just a timer, it's urgency made visible. It creates gentle pressure without panic, structure without punishment. It brings your scattered mind into focus with one glance. And when the task feels overwhelming, you don't have to finish everything. You just have to stay in the red. Hold your attention until the color disappears. And you will, because your brain craves resolution, and now it can see the finish line. Visual timers don't just count down, they anchor you. They turn time into something you can meet, hold, and complete. Not someday, but now.
The ABCDE Thought Challenge. When your thoughts start spiraling, "I'm not good enough. This always happens. I'll never get out of this." They don't feel like thoughts. They feel like truth. Heavy, loud, final. But most of the time, what's weighing you down isn't reality. It's a distorted belief. And there's a way to challenge it, to strip it of power and rebuild your mind from the inside out. It's called the ABCDE method, a mental rescue line used in cognitive behavioral therapy. It starts with A, adversity. What happened? The trigger, the thing that knocked you sideways. Then B, belief, what you told yourself about it, the story or interpretation your mind created. Then C, consequence, how you felt, what you did, and how it shaped your mood or behavior. Most people stop there, but that's where suffering lives. The breakthrough comes with D, disputation. This is where you argue back. You question the belief. Is it true? Is it always true? What evidence do I have? What else could be true instead? This isn't toxic positivity. It's mental cross-examination. You take the emotion off trial and put the thought on the stand. And finally comes E, energization. That shift, that breath, that moment when your nervous system loosens its grip and your brain whispers, "Wait, maybe I'm okay. Maybe this isn't doom." You feel the air return. You stand taller. You don't have to believe every thought your fear feeds you. You just have to know how to challenge it. Because the moment you do, the lie loses its grip. And you remember, the mind is loud, but you are louder.
Treat yourself like a friend. You fall behind. You forget, freeze, say the wrong thing, miss the deadline. You lose your grip. And what's the first voice you hear? "How could you? You're so stupid. What's wrong with you?" The voice is harsh, cruel, relentless. And here's the truth. If someone spoke to your best friend that way, you'd end the friendship. But you let it live in your own head, unchallenged, every single day. What if you didn't? What if you treated yourself the way you treat the people you love most? With softness, with understanding, with the grace to be human, without having to earn it every second. That shift is not indulgence, it's healing. It's not weakness, it's resilience. Because shame doesn't build growth, compassion does. Think of how you speak to a friend in pain. You don't scold, you sit beside them. You don't shame their mistakes, you remind them of who they are underneath. You forgive, you listen, you stay. Now imagine turning that same kindness inward. It's okay, you're doing your best. Let's try again. It sounds simple, but it cuts through years of internal war. It's a language your nervous system has been starving for.
Self-compassion isn't some luxury for better days. It's the fuel for surviving the hard ones. It steadies your breath. It repairs your trust in yourself. It turns healing into a homecoming. So try it. Next time you fall, don't tighten the grip. Loosen it. Speak like someone worth saving, because you are. And the one who needs to hear it most is you.
Listen to your future self. Recognize the voice of future you. Every choice you make echoes into a version of yourself you haven't met yet. The one waking up tomorrow, the one standing in front of the mirror next year, the one holding the weight or the reward of what you do today. But in the moment, that voice is quiet, buried under cravings, comfort, urgency. Future you whispers, while now you screams. And yet, if you learn to hear them, they will guide you. Future you is the part of you that wants more, not louder, just clearer. They don't shame, they remind. They don't demand perfection, they ask for alignment. They say, go for a walk, you always feel better afterward. Put your phone down, you'll sleep deeper. Say no now, thank me later. And when you listen, your life stops being a string of regrets and starts becoming a string of integrity. You've heard them before. The subtle voice that nudged you to leave when the vibe was off. The gut that told you to speak up, to pause, to try again. That wasn't luck or instinct. That was you, ahead of yourself, pulling you forward. And the more you honor that voice, the louder it gets. You don't need to predict the future. You are the future. Every bite, every word, every habit, every boundary, it's building someone. And that someone is you. You're shaping them whether you mean to or not. So pause and ask, what would future me want in this moment? Then act like they matter. Because they do. They're watching, and they're counting on you.
Have a wind-down ritual. Your body may be still, but your mind is pacing, replaying conversations, reliving stress, reaching for tasks you didn't finish. You close the laptop, but your nervous system is still logged in. And so you lie in bed, wired, scrolling, restless, wondering why rest feels impossible. What you need isn't just sleep, it's closure. That's where a wind-down ritual becomes sacred. A wind-down ritual is a deliberate signal to your brain, we're done now. It's not about candles and baths, unless you want that. It's about rhythm, repetition, familiarity. It's washing your face slowly, dimming the lights, putting your phone in a drawer, reading a few pages, journaling one page, breathing with intention. You design the ritual not for luxury, but for transition, from doing to being, from noise to silence. And your body responds. Your heart rate lowers, your thoughts soften. Your melatonin rises, not from pills, but from peace. The ritual doesn't just prepare you for sleep, it protects it. It tells your inner world, you're safe to let go now. No more decisions, no more vigilance, just rest. What matters most is that it's yours. Something repeatable, something small, something sacred. Because when you teach your brain what it feels like to close the day stops haunting your sleep. This isn't about sleep hygiene, it's about self-respect. The kind that whispers, I deserve softness, I deserve stillness, and I won't wait until I break to give it to myself. I'll end today on purpose.
Track mood in 3 words. Most days, you move too fast to notice how you feel. You're working, reacting, scrolling, surviving. Emotions blur in the background, unspoken, but heavy. You can't fix what you haven't felt. You can't heal what you haven't named. That's why tracking your mood in just 3 words can become a quiet revolution inside you. Every day,
You pause for a few seconds and ask, "What am I feeling right now?" Then you write 3 words. Not paragraphs, not explanations. Just 3 sharp, honest signals from your inner world. Foggy, anxious, detached. Or focused, grateful, calm. Or tired, uninspired, hopeful. There's no right answer. The words don't need to be beautiful. They just need to be true. This simple ritual builds emotional fluency. It teaches your mind to stop and check in. You start noticing patterns, how certain people, places, or tasks affect your state. You begin to see what lifts you, what drains you, what lingers. You stop being a passenger in your own emotional life and start taking the wheel. And the shift isn't just cognitive, it's spiritual. The moment you name something, it stops controlling you. You create space between the feeling and the reaction. That space is where power lives. 3 words, that's all. But if you write them down every day, they become a map, a mirror, a lighthouse. Proof that you're not stuck, you're evolving. One emotion at a time, one truth at a time, one quiet act of awareness that changes everything.
Pair hard tasks with rewards. There's that task, you know the one. The call you keep postponing, the workout you promise you'll start tomorrow, the spreadsheet, the deep work, the honest conversation. It stares at you like a dare, heavy, boring, intimidating. And so you avoid it. Not because you're lazy, but because your brain only sees the cost, not the payoff. That's why you need to bribe yourself, intelligently, deliberately, shamelessly. Pair the hard thing with a reward your nervous system craves. This isn't weakness, it's biology. Dopamine is the fuel of action, and rewards are how you generate it. When you pair a difficult task with something pleasurable, an episode of your favorite show, a walk in the sun, a treat, music you love, you rewire the experience. You no longer fear the task because your brain starts to associate it with a win. It's habit anchoring, but emotional. I only listen to that playlist when I'm running. I get my best coffee after I write 500 words. The key is consistency. Make the reward predictable. Let it become part of the ritual. Over time, the brain starts wanting the hard thing because it knows what's coming next. This changes your relationship with resistance. It replaces dread with anticipation. It makes discipline feel less like punishment and more like partnership with yourself. You're not forcing effort, you're rewarding it. And when effort feels rewarding, it becomes sustainable. Don't wait for motivation. Build momentum. Attach joy to effort. Let your brain taste the payoff, not after the mountain is climbed, but every time you take a step.
Say no without explaining. You feel it coming. The ask, the invitation, the favor dressed as a compliment. And in your gut, the answer is no. But out of habit, fear, or guilt, you scramble to justify it. You add reasons, soften the refusal, bend your truth to cushion their disappointment. And every time you do that, you hand over a piece of your power. Saying no without explaining is not cold. It's not rude. It's an act of radical self-respect. Because behind every explanation is a hidden plea. Please understand me. Please approve of me. Please don't be upset with me. But your boundaries don't need permission to exist. They just need to be honored. You don't owe your time, energy, or attention to everyone who asks for it. You don't have to earn the right to rest, protect your peace, or prioritize yourself. A simple, "No, I'm not available," or "No, I can't take that on," is complete, clean, and whole. Yes, it may feel uncomfortable at first, like standing naked in truth, but that's how you build integrity. Every time you say no without defending it, you teach yourself that your needs matter. You teach others that your boundaries are not up for negotiation. And slowly, you stop fearing the fallout. You stop shrinking. You stop making yourself small to make others more comfortable. The people who belong in your life won't need a reason to respect your no. They'll hear it and still love you, still trust you, still stay. Because real connection doesn't require explanation. It requires truth.
Shake your body when stuck. You sit frozen in front of the screen. Your jaw is tight. Your shoulders are hunched. Your thoughts loop like static. You try to think your way out of it, push through, grit your teeth, but nothing moves. That's because your body is holding what your mind can't process. And the fastest way to reset isn't in your head. It's in your nervous system. So, shake. Literally stand up. Let your arms go loose. Bounce on your heels. Shake your hands, your hips, your legs. Let it be awkward. Let it be primal. Let it be real. You're not dancing. You're discharging, the way animals do after they escape danger. They don't overanalyze. They tremble. They shake off the trauma. They move the fear through. You can too. In seconds, tension breaks, blood flows, your nervous system shifts out of freeze and into flow. You start breathing again, thinking again, feeling alive again. This isn't silly, it's sacred. It's your body remembering how to let go when your mind won't. Use it when you feel blocked, numb, overwhelmed, when you can't write, can't speak, can't decide. Shake for 30 seconds. Let it all move through you. And you'll feel the shift, not just in your limbs, but in your clarity. The fog lifts, the spiral slows, the moment breaks. This isn't about looking normal. It's about feeling free. The body knows how to reset. All it needs is your permission. Give it. Shake. Begin again.
There's a hum behind your distractions, a silence too loud, or a noise too sharp. You try to focus, but your mind keeps wandering. Every little sound grabs your attention. Every room feels either too quiet or too chaotic. You can't drop into flow because your environment is either overstimulating or sterile. That's where ambient noise becomes your secret portal. Not silence, not music, something in between. Ambient noise is the gentle background current that tricks your brain into stillness. Cafe chatter, rainfall, distant thunder, ocean waves, crackling fire. These soft pattern sounds create a kind of mental cocoon, a barrier between your thoughts and the world. They blur distractions, soothe anxiety, and whisper to your mind, "We're in focus mode." And this isn't random. Studies show ambient noise activates the brain just enough to stimulate creativity and sustain attention without pulling you away from the task. It mimics the low hum of a bustling environment, which evolution trained us to interpret as safe. When the background feels steady, the brain stops scanning for danger and starts working. Try it while writing, reading, doing deep work, or even falling asleep. Find your signature sound, the one that melts the noise in your head and sharpens what's in front of you. Use headphones. Loop it. Make it a ritual. Ambient noise doesn't entertain you. It anchors you. It turns ordinary space into sacred space. And when your world feels too loud or too empty, this sound, soft, constant, alive, becomes the steady breath that keeps your focus from drifting away.
Imagine time as currency. You spend it constantly. every scroll, every meeting, every just one more episode. But because you don't see it leaving your hand, you forget it's happening. You forget that time is your most valuable currency, finite, non-refundable, silently slipping away second by second. But when you start imagining time as money, everything changes. Picture each hour as $100, each minute as a coin you'll never get back. Suddenly, a 3-hour binge isn't just relaxing, it's a $300 withdrawal. That empty conversation, $50 gone. And that project you've been avoiding, it's not just costing your future, it's bleeding your balance sheet right now. This isn't about guilt, it's about awareness. Because once you see time this way, you stop spending it like it's unlimited. You start asking better questions. Is this worth it? Would I pay for this moment? Would I invest this hour in this person, this task, this thought? You begin to realize that some things are worth everything, and others were never worth even 5 minutes. You also stop overcommitting. You protect your time like a bank account. You say no without shame. You guard your mornings. You move with intention, not impulse. And what you get in return isn't just productivity, it's presence. It's the awareness that your life isn't slipping away in invisible transactions. It's being rich in the only currency that truly matters. You'll never get a receipt. There's no refund, but you can still choose how to spend what's left. Because time is money. And every second you're alive, you're either investing it or giving it away.
Gamify boring tasks. There are tasks that drain your soul minute by minute. Laundry, budgeting, replying to emails, cleaning up digital clutter. They're not hard. They're just lifeless, repetitive, and empty of thrill. That's why you avoid them. They drain you without rewarding you. But what if you flipped the script? What if you didn't just do the task? What if you turned it into a game? Gamification hijacks your dopamine system. You give yourself a point for every email cleared. You race the clock while folding clothes. You create a scoreboard for boring errands. You set a timer and try to beat your best time. You assign mini levels, prizes, even fake penalties. And suddenly, the task that used to dull your spirit becomes something that sparks it. Your brain lights up, not because the task changed, but because the story did. Games create stakes, feedback, progress. They tap into the part of you that loves to win, to track, to chase little victories. Even if the prize is imaginary, the motivation is real. You trick your mind into caring. And once you care, momentum carries you. This is how kids survive chores, how high performers stay consistent, how people with ADHD move through monotony without breaking. Gamifying isn't childish, it's strategic joy. It makes life's mundane corners feel a little more electric. You don't need to wait for motivation. Create a challenge. Set the rules. Let the points pile up. And watch as the most boring task becomes something worth finishing. Not for the task itself, but for the win.
Whisper instead of yell. When the blood rises and your voice begins to follow, it feels like yelling is the only way to be heard. The louder you get, the more power you think you'll have. But yelling rarely commands attention. It repels it. It creates tension, walls, and noise. It triggers defenses and sharpens conflict. But a whisper slices through the chaos like a blade through still air. Whispering when someone expects a shout doesn't make you weaker. It makes you unpredictable. People lean in. Their heartbeat slows. The room stills. You control not just your voice, but the energy. A whisper signals confidence, control, and intention. It says, I don't need to raise my voice to raise the weight of my words. It disarms the fight. It shifts focus from volume to content.
You no longer sound desperate. You sound deadly clear. A whisper brings gravity, like a quiet truth you can't unhear. And because it's unexpected, it pierces deeper than any scream ever could. This tactic doesn't just work in conflict. It works in persuasion, in intimacy, in leadership. It makes your listener feel, not just hear. You're not throwing your words into the void. You're placing them with care into someone's emotional hand. And it changes you too. The act of lowering your voice centers your body, slows your breath, calms your nerves. You don't lose yourself in the heat, you cool the fire from the inside. Yelling feels powerful. Whispering is power refined.
Sit in a different chair. You think you're stuck because of the problem, but often you're stuck because of the position. Same chair, same posture, same room, same stale air. Your brain links environment to emotion. So every time you sit in that familiar spot, at the desk where the pressure lives, on the couch where you scroll to numb, you cue up the same mental playlist. The thoughts don't change because nothing else does. But shift the seat, just one move, and everything tilts. Sit on the floor. Perch on a windowsill. Take your laptop to the kitchen, the hallway, the car. Your body registers the difference immediately. The view changes, the posture adjusts, the pressure rewires. You interrupt the autopilot with a physical signal. We're not in the loop anymore. New chairs mean new associations. They trigger creativity, reflection, or action, depending on what you choose to feel there. You can even designate a specific seat just for writing, or healing, or quiet. You create micro-environments, micro-identities. Your space becomes responsive instead of restrictive. This is the fastest spatial hack to change your mental state without needing a vacation or renovation. You don't need to escape your life. You just need to shift your seat inside it. You're not changing the world, but you're changing your angle on it. And sometimes that's all your mind needs. So next time your thoughts feel heavy, frozen, or flat, don't ask, "What should I think differently?" Ask instead, "Where else can I sit?" Then go there. Let the chair do the rest.
Tell the story backwards. There are moments in life when everything feels like it's crashing at once, emotionally, mentally, relationally. You look around at the wreckage and whisper to yourself, "How did I end up here?" It feels like a storm hit you out of nowhere. But storms don't just appear, they build. And sometimes the only way to understand the present is to stop trying to push forward and start pulling it backward. Telling the story backwards means beginning with the moment you're in right now. Start with the emotion. I'm exhausted. I'm angry. I feel hollow. Then rewind. What happened just before this? What triggered this specific mood, thought, or reaction? Keep stepping back. Before that text, before that meeting, before that silence. You'll begin to unravel the timeline not from emotion, but from sequence. This is more than analysis. It's an act of self-compassion. When you retrace your steps in reverse, you realize that what feels sudden was actually slow. Invisible choices, ignored instincts, small compromises. They built this. And that awareness is powerful because if it was built, it can be unbuilt, rewritten, reclaimed. This process strips away shame and replaces it with curiosity. You stop saying, "What's wrong with me?" and start asking, "Where did I begin to abandon myself?" It turns spirals into stories, stories into steps, and steps into strategy. Don't just run from the pain, walk backward into it piece by piece. The map to healing is written in reverse. Start there.
Let the first draft be trash.
You sit in front of the blank page with a vision so vivid it aches to be released, but your fingers freeze. Every word feels wrong, every sentence awkward, every thought clumsy. You start, delete, start again, backspace, sigh. Perfection hangs over your shoulder like a ghost whispering, "This isn't good enough." And that's exactly why you need this rule. Let the first draft be absolute, unapologetic trash. Not mediocre, not could be better trash. Let it be messy, let it be bloated, let it contradict itself, ramble, miss the point entirely. That's the point. The first draft isn't the masterpiece, it's the permission slip. It's you throwing paint on the canvas so you can see what's actually trying to emerge underneath. No one edits silence. No one publishes what they never had the courage to create in raw form. You'll be shocked by what appears when you stop clutching the outcome and just move. Hidden ideas, emotional truths, unexpected genius disguised as garbage. Your job isn't to write well, it's to write. The sculpting comes later. And strangely, this freedom creates momentum. You stop fearing the page. You start showing up not as the perfect version of you, but as the real one. That's the version that has something worth saying. So write like no one's watching, like you're whispering secrets to yourself, like it's okay to get it all wrong. Because beneath that trash draft is gold. But you'll never find it until you dare to be bad first.
Change fonts to reset focus. You stare at the screen, reading the same line for the 5th time. Your eyes glaze over. Your mind drifts. The words you once cared about now feel like static. You're not tired, you're numb. This isn't a productivity problem. It's a pattern recognition problem. Your brain has seen this text, this layout, this font too many times. It has stopped paying attention. But there's a surprisingly simple fix. Change the font. Just one click, one aesthetic shift. Serif to sans serif, small to large, bold to light. What happens next is almost immediate. Your brain re-engages. The content feels unfamiliar again. The structure you've been blind to becomes visible. You're not reading something new, but it feels like you are. And that feeling brings your focus back online. This isn't cosmetic, it's cognitive. Your brain craves novelty. When it gets it, even in tiny visual doses, it rewards you with fresh attention. That attention turns into retention. Retention turns into clarity. And clarity turns into progress. Use this trick for editing, writing, brainstorming, or reviewing. When you're stuck in a document that once inspired you, but now just feels dead, don't rewrite it, re-see it. Change the font. Reset the lens. It's the fastest way to rewire your focus without needing a break, a coffee, or a pep talk. The work didn't get better. You just remembered how to see it again. And sometimes that's all you need to move forward with fire. Clench your toes to reground. There are moments when your mind takes off without you, spiraling into imagined futures, replaying old conversations, inventing worst-case scenarios that feel just real enough to paralyze you. You try to breathe through it, reason with it, override it with logic. But logic can't always touch what the nervous system has already decided is a threat. When the storm starts inside your head, the way out isn't up, it's down, ground level, through your toes. Clench them slowly, firmly, one foot, then the other. Hold for 5 seconds. Release. Repeat. You might not think it matters, it's such a small gesture, but that's the brilliance of it. It's discreet, immediate, and completely physical. It bypasses thought entirely and grabs your focus through sensation. This technique pulls you out of the cognitive spin and drops you back into your body. It sends a signal to your brain. I'm here. I'm safe. I'm in control. Your feet connect with the earth. Your muscles engage. Your awareness travels downward, away from the chaos. You stop floating. You stop fighting. You arrive. And once you're back in your body, your breath follows. Your thoughts slow. Your presence expands. You're no longer a passenger in your own life. You're in the driver's seat again. Use this during panic, during tough conversations, during sleepless nights. Clench. Breathe. Feel. It won't solve the situation, but it will stabilize you inside it. Because sometimes the most powerful way to reclaim your mind isn't through mantra or meditation, but through the quiet grip of 10 grounded toes reminding you, you are here. You are okay. You're not going anywhere.
Write the email, then delete it. There are moments when your chest burns with something unsaid, an argument you never finished, an apology you never gave, a truth you've buried beneath politeness, silence, or fear, and it festers. You rehearse the words in your head over and over, knowing they'll never be said aloud, because if they are, they might explode everything. But holding it in, that's its own kind of destruction. So here's the middle ground. Write the email, then delete it. Type every word with brutal honesty. Say what you really meant. Let the fury spill, the heartbreak scream, the honesty crack the surface. Don't censor, don't edit, don't soften it to be likable. Make it ugly, make it real. Because the purpose isn't to communicate with them, it's to release what's rotting inside you. This is emotional detox. The act of writing is your pressure valve. It allowed the unspoken to be spoken, not out loud, but in ink. And the moment it exists outside your body, it begins to lose its power over you. You see it clearly. You feel the truth of it. And maybe for the first time, you realize what doesn't need to be said anymore. Then you delete it. Or save it in a hidden folder, or burn it if that feels better. Because the real release already happened. It was the act, not the outcome. You gave your truth a voice without burning bridges or regretting the fallout. Not everything needs to be sent, but everything needs somewhere to go. And sometimes, a blank screen and a blinking cursor become the safest place to bleed what your heart can no longer carry. Say it. Write it. Delete it. And breathe.
Name your hardest selves. There's a version of you that shows up in moments you hate, when you lash out, procrastinate, sabotage, numb, or overthink. You watch yourself repeat old patterns and whisper, "Why do I keep doing this?" You feel broken, ashamed, like your worst moments define you. But what if they didn't? What if you could meet those parts of yourself, not with self-hate, but with distance? What if you gave them a name? Not your name, theirs. Sabotage Sam, Panic Pete, Angry Alex. A character, not a curse. A pattern, not your personality. This tiny shift creates space between you and the behavior. It turns self-blame into self-awareness. Because now it's not you spiraling, it's that old voice again. That character with the same lines, same moves, same fear under the mask. And in that space, you get to choose. You get to talk back. "Hey, Sam, I see you trying to ruin this again. We're not doing that today." "Panic Pete, thanks for trying to keep me safe, but I've got this one." Suddenly, your emotional history isn't in control. You are. This isn't avoidance. It's ownership without collapse. It's creating language for the parts of you that don't need more shame. They need boundaries. Naming them doesn't make them disappear, but it makes them manageable. And it reminds you that you are not your patterns.
You are the observer, the chooser, the one who gets to decide who takes the wheel. Give that hard identity a name. Then take your name back.
The 5-year-old test for mental clarity. There's a decision, a conflict, a thought loop that feels impossibly complex. You overanalyze, overthink, twist yourself into emotional knots trying to make sense of it all. But the harder you think, the foggier it gets. You're not getting closer to clarity, you're drowning in intellect. That's when you use the 5-year-old test. Ask yourself, how would I explain this to a 5-year-old? Strip away the jargon, the drama, the layers of defense and ego. Break it down to its simplest form. I'm scared to try because I might fail. They hurt my feelings and I want them to say sorry. I'm tired because I never rest. What once felt tangled becomes clean. What once felt unspeakable becomes honest. Children don't care about your status, your timeline, or your strategy. They care about truth. And when you're lost, that's what you need too. Not more complexity, but essence. When you explain something like you would to a child, your language softens, your heart opens. You stop performing, you start seeing. Use it for conversations, for writing, for explaining yourself to others, and to yourself. When you find the child version of your truth, you find the version that's easiest to act on. And often it's the one that hurts the most and heals the fastest. This isn't about dumbing it down. It's about stripping it real. Because if a 5-year-old could understand it, then so can you. And maybe, finally, you will.
1 big, 3 medium, 5 small. You sit down with a to-do list that reads like a confession. Every undone task screaming for attention, demanding urgency, crowding your mind with guilt. It's not just overwhelming, it's paralyzing. Because when everything feels important, nothing moves. But there's a structure that cuts through the noise like a blade. 1 big, 3 medium, 5 small. It's a daily system built for clarity. You choose one big task, the needle mover, the thing that, if done, makes the day a win. Then you choose 3 medium tasks, important but manageable. Then 5 small ones, quick hits that keep life flowing. It's not about perfection. It's about momentum. You stop reacting to whatever screams loudest and start creating intentional order. This list brings relief. 9 tasks total. That's it. You've named your priorities, you've scaled your expectations, you've built a ladder instead of a mountain. It gives your brain a map, not a war zone. Each box you check becomes a win, not a chore, a choice. The emotional power lies in the balance. You get the satisfaction of completion without the weight of burnout. You stop ending your day in shame over what didn't get done and start recognizing what did. You carry a sense of movement, not failure. And slowly, you become someone who finishes things. Not because you did everything, but because you did what mattered. 1 big, 3 medium, 5 small. Simple math, deep magic. It's not just productivity, it's peace in disguise.
Talk slower for authority. You rush through sentences like they're burning in your mouth, fast, nervous, eager to be done. You don't want silence to creep in. You don't want to sound unsure. You don't want anyone to think you're weak. But what if the very thing you fear, slowing down, was actually the key to power? Confidence doesn't shout. It doesn't race. It pauses. It owns the moment. Talking slower isn't just a style, it's a signal. It tells the room, I'm not in a hurry. I belong here.
When you slow your speech, your words land heavier. People lean in. Your thoughts feel deliberate. Your presence expands. You stop chasing approval and start commanding attention. And the world feels that shift instantly. Your brain, too, begins to follow your voice. Slower speech soothes your nervous system. It quiets the storm of anxiety before it turns into rambling. It creates space between your thoughts, where clarity and control live. When your heart is racing, your breath shallow, and your head spinning, talking slower drags you out of the spiral. It anchors you. And here's what people won't tell you. The ones who talk the fastest often feel the most afraid. Like if they stop for 1 second, they'll lose the right to speak. But the ones who pause, the ones who let the silence breathe around their words, own the room. Not because they speak more, but because they believe what they're saying. So, slow down, say less, mean more. Speak like your words matter, because they do.
Treat today like a documentary scene. Most days pass by like background noise. You move through them on autopilot, scrolling, reacting, multitasking, surviving. You think the big moments are still ahead, that someday you'll show up fully, that eventually your story will start. But the truth is, it already has. It's happening right now. The camera is already rolling. You just haven't noticed. So try this, just for one day. Treat today like a scene in a documentary about your life. Not the highlight reel, not the polished interview, but the raw, real, in-between moments, the ones that show who you are when no one's watching. When you wake up tired but still get out of bed. When you speak gently instead of lashing out. When you sit down to do the hard thing even though no one will ever clap for it. The camera is invisible, but it's there, watching you brush your teeth, make your coffee, choose your words, hold your silence. Your every move is a detail in a larger arc, the story of your becoming. And when you treat it that way, everything shifts. You walk with more presence. You speak with more care. You listen like it matters, because it does. This isn't about performance. It's about reverence. You're not pretending someone's watching. You're remembering that you are both the author and the actor of your life. Every decision today is part of your story. Every choice you make is a frame. So treat this moment like it matters, because it does.